Good evening. Welcome to Elections Daily's coverage of Canada Votes 2021. I'm Peter, joined along with Aaron Goldsmith, and we will be most likely part of the night covering this result of Canada's lovely election. It's snap election that Prime Minister Trudeau called, and so far we have early results from the Atlantic, and I'll let Aaron tell us where we're at.
So currently we've got in a position where there's only one projected winner in St. John's South. We've got currently the Liberals leading 14 others, the Conservatives leading 4, the New Democrats leading in 1. Currently this would mean that there will be 2 gains for the Conservatives, though one of them is extraordinarily early numbers with only 1 poll leading. And in terms of Newfoundland and Labrador, there's 2 currently in Coast Bay, Central Notre Dame, and Bonavista, Burman, Trinity. Sorry if I've butchered that, which are going back and forth. One of which is currently the Conservatives column, one of which is currently in Liberals. However, throughout the early results, it's really been a swing area.
Yes, and of course the Atlantic, what is currently insofar has really been a Liberal heartland for most of the last few elections, a place where the Liberals can count on their votes to wrap up before heading more eastern. So it will be intriguing to see whether the Tories tonight can make some gains in the Atlantic, or whether the Liberals will hold everything they have and possibly have a good night already from the get-go.
It will be. I mean, we saw in the last election that New Brunswick really returned to its Conservative roots. We saw this year, in fact, Nova Scotia get the first Conservative majority provincial government since 1999, and its first Conservative government since 2006. So there's a potential that people have been looking at that as carrying on to swing towards into the federal level, though in recent polling of the last couple of weeks, that seems to have dissipated. However, I'm sure there are many Conservative hopes that the polls were in fact wrong and that they will make some nice gains in that area.
Indeed, and of course the Tories would very much hope that the polls are very much wrong so far tonight, because it would mean a possibility of being competitive in this game. Of course, for the recap, of course, this election was called by Prime Minister Trudeau to get a majority after the pandemic. He believed he could go to the country and win a majority of from the Canadian public. So far tonight, most polling expects him to have a minority government. The question would be, is it a gain? Will it be a weaker minority government than it was 2 years ago? That remains to be seen. While the Conservatives are hopeful that possibly there is a polling error that may have epically be in their favor of being able to have a chance of forming a government come the end of the night. But of course, this is early hours. We haven't even gotten to Ontario or Quebec, which is really where the game is won and lost in Canada.
There will be 2 specific ridings that will be very interesting to look outside of the traditional Conservative v Liberal battleground, which will be Fredericton, which the Greens actually won in the last election. However, that went that's gone mad because the MP has gone and joined the Liberals, and others. So the Greens are hoping to hold that for their column. However, as you'd expect, the Liberals are somewhat confident of being able to take that seat under the MP, and also in St. John's East, where the long-term MP there is retiring, and the NDP will be hoping that they can hold that. That is an area of which Jagmeet Singh launched his party platform, but the Liberals are hopeful of taking it. And in fact, many election models have got them doing so.
Yes, and currently, since we've gone on the air, the scorecard of the parties so far, 17 for the Liberals, 5 for the Conservatives, and 1 for the NDP. Of course, 1 Liberal currently is the fully elected one, but we're sure over the next few minutes, hours, that will, of course, trickle on.
We can hope. I mean, I've seen many complaints over the short amounts of time. Also, the long amount of time it's taken to get some serious votes in. However, the just to show how close and early it is, in the Bonavasta, Burren Trinity, a new update has come in, and in fact, it's a 4-vote advantage for the Liberals now, who've just retaken the lead. It's literally 2,307 to 2,304.
Yes, and currently, right now, on the very small results we have now, the Tories would be gaining a seat right now, but of course, this is early hours, early days. We genuinely will have to wait and see. I believe with the mail-in ballots, I think that they should have that mostly counted tonight. If I recall my understanding, that they were trying to get that as in as possible when it came to counting that.
I'm at present unaware of the extent of that. However, it will be interesting because I believe the order is that they'll be doing the election day, then the
yes,
various other types after. But the election day first could be interesting in terms of the impact.
Indeed, and one thing I think a lot of people are going to be curious on is what that variation may be. I mean, the polls have had the PPC very high. We're going to find out whether those polls were correct or whether that was an error. A bloc has had a ride of being down and up. Will they overperform expectations again and be very strong in La Quebec? And will the NDP be able to ride its momentum it's had for most of this campaign?
Indeed. At the moment, it's interesting seeing all the different back and forths going, but we have our second officially elected, or I should say projected by CBC in Avalon. The Liberal will apparently definitely be returning to the House of Commons from there.
Yes, Seamus Regas, the Liberal cabinet minister in a safe seat. At least one member of the Trudeau cabinet tonight can already rest assured that he will possibly have some thing come the end of the night. Of course, that's just me being facetious, of course. But yes, be interesting to see.
So currently, we in the riding of Coast of Bays, Central Notre Dame, we have over 100 polls currently in, and the Conservatives have a tiny lead of just 32 votes. Now, this was a very close riding in the last election, and it looks like it could well be very similar this time around.
Yes, and I think one of the interesting things so far is the Liberals, of course, are ahead, but it looks like the Tories are actually surprisingly doing very all right for the moment being. Of course, this is still early hours and whatnot, but of course, if they were at +2 right now, this is probably something, if you're the O'Toole camp, that you're probably, if this holds, breathing a little better than where you were at the starting of this night.
Well, I mean, this is very much a Liberal-centric area within the recent years. You know, various areas such as New Brunswick have previously been more conservative. However, after 2015, it kind of was a complete sweep for the Liberals. But I think that there's been some quiet confidence in terms of the Atlantic region for the Conservatives, whether they can make a couple of gains. I don't think there was, at the beginning there was talks of wild increases in vote share, but that seemed to dull a bit down as the election went on. So I think they're quietly confident they could take 1 or 2, but I think their main aim is to try to take more in Quebec, Ontario, and BC.
Yeah, I mean that's more or less it. I mean they're give or take right now 5 or 6 seats. I mean, they probably would prefer to be up a little more, but I mean you probably take what you can. I mean the Liberals, I think, were always confident as time went on that their numbers in the Atlantic seemed to be stabilizing more to the more falling than what the Tories were having early on. Of course, the regional polling and the riding pollings have been their own fun games. If you follow some of the Canadian polling experts who have made their fun criticisms of riding polls compared to the regional polling.
I would like to actually make a statement on one of the comments I've just seen about the Liberals might have a coalition with the New Dems. And I actually asked one of the political analysts for ECOS about this, that even if the Liberals have a minority, it's still very unlikely that they'd go in a formal coalition or have any degree of pact with the NDP because, generally speaking, the NDP would be fearful of that, and the Liberals would be afraid of legitimising the NDP in any way.
And also the other issue, of course, is that the Liberals do not want to make themselves have tack ads with the NDP, as that's always been a long-standing thing of the Tories, saying the coalition of chaos or left. So I think, as they say, coalitions are not a thing in Canada in English or French. But I think could they work together? I mean, sure. I mean, it's quite possible. But I think the Liberals would probably prefer to, if they have the numbers to do it, work on their own with no one else.
100%. I mean, obviously, this election really nicely was Justin Trudeau attempting to get a majority government, because we've had 2 years of a minority government, and a lot of the agenda of the Liberals has kind of been curtailed slightly by the NDP, pushing them more to the left in order to get their agenda through. So, and that was, I think, one of the big controversies of the election to begin with, was that people didn't want an election. We have to remember this. But here we are. And it will be interesting to see if, like most other elections that have happened in the last 2 years, that the incumbent party gets rewarded for that. There's only been one case, which is the Nova Scotia, of a party being, I can't think of the words, just lost went for me, but a party losing out from betting on an early election. And right now we have in Newfoundland and Labrador, we have 2 gains for the Conservatives that have just flipped again, which would currently now put it on a +3 for the Conservatives and minus, as I say that, a +4 for the Conservatives. They've just taken lead somewhere else. I won't be able to look at it right now. But the NDP are up 1 and the Greens down 1.
Yeah, and I mean, the other story, is that the Greens are really, from 2 years ago, having a high hopes with one of their best election results, and now a campaign that has been more known for internal struggles, and a leader who may be very much under siege tonight if they do not do as well as they had hoped to. They had 3 at the last Parliament. One, obviously, as Aaron mentioned, is now a Liberal running in Fredericton, and the other 2 in British Columbia are hoping to hold on to their seats tonight. The Greens have very much been a party in the thick of it. But yes, the seat numbers are very much all over it. And just as I say this, we have another Liberal elected in Lavendore.
Indeed. Actually, one thing to add on that, because the Greens came into this election in complete turmoil, but it seemed that they almost found a second wind after the leadership debate, with Paul was seen by many people to have been the winner of that. And, looking at the current projections, predictions from many of the pollsters, they're either got 2 or 3 seats. And if they were to get 3 seats, then that would obviously equal their result last time with a much reduced percentage of their vote, which could indicate a greater voter efficiency, which will do better for them in the future.
Yeah, and I think one thing will be interesting as we push into the night, we'll be seeing a lot of how these areas that the Tories have struggled in since 2015, these high-income areas of the suburbs, the GTA, the 905, British Columbia suburbs, is how well will they be able to recover from that? Obviously, British Columbia tonight, by all polling, looks to be its own special place, with that looking more and more like a Tory NDP battle, with the Liberals probably not gaining any seats at all, possibly might lose seats in general as well.
Well, I think this has really been an election of various different areas. We've seen the prairies and Alberta possibly moving from the Conservatives after their near sweep last time. We've seen Quebec go back and forth between 3 different parties. We've seen Atlanta go back and forth between swings towards Conservatives and Liberals. In BC, similarly between the NDP, Conservatives and Liberals at various different points. So I think that really this is going to be a fascinating election going into the latter stages, when it really starts to get going, if you know what I mean.
Yes. And Raul, if you're asking if we can see you in the comments section, yes, we can.
We can. Don't worry. We can see all the people that are being elected. Don't worry.
Of course, it's very hard in my case watching two networks trying to see on. But yes, so far interesting to say the least. Of course, the interesting story of the night will be the pressure on the leaders. Of course, if what happens. Because let's assume the Liberals win, Mr. Eric Toole will probably be under immense pressure from his leadership caucus to possibly have to give in to the job because of the thin line of winning and losing. But there's also the point of Mr. Trudeau. If there's a very meh performance, even if they're the largest party or they come in second, where he probably himself may have to look at his own leadership. So we could have an interesting night in terms of leadership potential.
It could potentially be just looking at the leaders. Three party leaders going. I mean, I was going to say 4 in case Singh didn't deliver, but I think he's generally pretty safe. Right. But Trudeau, if he loses seats, I think he's potentially could be gone. If O'Toole doesn't actually win, we saw at the beginning of the election that he was gaining momentum, and if the PPC do very well in terms of vote share and actually block the Conservative Party from taking seats, then potentially that could be him gone right there, as many people on the right of him will be blaming this left-wing, or more left-wing than expected platform for that. And obviously, Annamie Paul, now, she's going to be a very interesting case because it's highly likely that, if they don't do anywhere as near as well they did in the last election, then she could be gone. Now, it will be interesting to see, though, if she reduces the vote but holds the 3, what will happen? Because obviously it shows a decrease in popularity, but maintaining the same amount of seats might just embed her into the leadership. But there's also another aspect of it, is whether she takes Toronto Centre.
Yeah, I mean, of course, for her, I think it's a lot more pressure to perform. But I think the only leader so far, I think, who can, at the end of tonight, probably is safe, barring a catastrophe in his fortunes, is probably the leader of the bloc.
But I mean, you say that. I don't see Maxime Bernier going anytime soon.
Well, there's right. There's Mad Max. Can't forget about him. PPC, please don't sue me for not considering you a major party in that statement. Yes, of course, there's Mad Max, who was, of course, we haven't mentioned him. He's running for his former seat in Patrice against the man the Tories who defeated him. Most polling expects the Tories will hold on to it, but it'll be interesting to see how that works. Does he cut?
What's also interesting? Sorry for interrupting you. That was my mistake. But I was talking to one of a pretty important modeler, and he was saying that the PPC could win 2 seats, but not win both, which obviously would actually become interesting if that does happen with what the PPC decide to do, if Bose actually gets ousted from the party he started because he failed to win. And I've just spoken to someone, and apparently the mail-in ballots will be counted tomorrow.
Oh.
I'm going to check if that means tomorrow during the day or tomorrow at night.
Well, let's see. Let's see what the CBC has, but yeah, I mean, so far, we're trying to do another seat update.
So far we've got 2 elected Liberals, 20 leading, 8 Conservative leading, 2 New Democratic leading, which gives a +4 net for Conservatives and -4 for Liberals, a +1 for the New Democrats, and -1 for the Greens. Now, we have to obviously caveat by saying that some of them are very early. For example, Fredericton, which the Liberals are currently leading 3 votes to 2. So, some of them you've got to take with a pinch of salt. But in places such as Newfoundland and Labrador, which is the most developed voting area, we've currently got one change at present, which would be a Conservative gain in the coastal bays, central Notre Dame. The other one that they were looking to take is Bonavastra, Burin Trinity. However, with 125 polls reporting, it's now a 493 vote lead. Now, the other big one that may have actually, sorry to interrupt myself there, but we've actually got a newly elected, which is in Beauséjour, where the Liberals are holding on. That anyway, back to another big battleground, which is St. John's East, which is 30 out of 182 polls reporting, and a 217 lead for the NDP. Now, most people predicted that the Liberals would take this, but it's interesting at this moment that the NDP are in fact holding on.
Yeah, fascinating night. I mean, so far, I mean, the Liberals are winning in the Atlantic as expected, but the Tories seem to be doing a bit better than maybe what they were expected maybe at this part of the night. Of course, it's early, and we haven't gotten to most of the poll centers in the Atlantic, but so far, not terrible results for the Tories. I mean, not terrible for the Liberals, which makes this very fascinating once this transitions into Quebec, where we may be seeing different phases of this election strategies in play.
Just to comment on what someone's actually typed in our chat, the Liberals are leading at the moment, partly because this is a generally Atlantic region is a very liberal area, especially in the last two elections. And there wasn't many projected or predicted changes likely to happen in this area. In fact, in the entire Atlantic area, if this would be if this was right now from what we've got now to bear out in reality, this would possibly be more of a change than many thought would happen.
Yeah, I mean, 8 would be a very big improvement. I mean, in terms of what they have, and that would be quite something. I mean, that'd be their most seats in the Atlantic, I believe, since 2011, and that was when Tories did exceptionally well there. So it'll be intriguing to see if they can hold something to this. And this is obviously, if that's correct, means that the polls may have been a little off, possibly in the Atlantic, which may have a theme nationally, or may just be one regional story that we wait to see.
Well, it's interesting because it kind of went back and forth in Atlantic, where 1 week the Conservatives were doing fantastically well, the next week the Liberals were. So I think that really what we're going to see is we're going to really, it's going to be very interesting for the polls to truly, I guess, hold themselves to account of what's happening, because I think this may have been an election with the swings that have happened that was very difficult to predict. So I do have some sympathies with them.
Yes, and of course, the pollsters tonight are probably all watching with ease and seeing who will be right and who possibly might get the fun distinction of their poll firm either being closest to the actual result or the turkey of the election, which, of course, we hope no one gets that turkey award, because we don't have any prejudice against any pollsters in the land.
I will say, most pollsters kind of predicted the Liberals to be around 150 to 160, kind of. Some were a bit above, some were a bit low. But then you have Forum, which went out on a limb here and is predicted 143 to them and 138 to the Conservatives, which, if that were to bear out, would be an extraordinary result.
Indeed, it would be one of the tightest parliaments in Canada in decades.
Sorry to interrupt. We have our first elected Conservative in Topik Maktapet. I'm going to butcher all these names, so I'm sorry to any Canadians out there.
Indeed, we have elected Conservative, and also means that there will be a Tory in the Atlantic. So there are no...
Well, they had some before, but currently it's 2,180 to 873, 57% to 23, 18 polls reporting. So that's what we call a nice little start to get the ball rolling.
Yes, and indeed, it is obviously now there will be one member of caucus. You can already say tonight he's been reelected. But yes, it's one, of course.
Indeed.
Be intriguing, but of course, the results as we see it is 22 Liberals, 8 Conservatives, 2 NDP, course, nothing with the Bloc because this is nothing with Quebec, and the Greens currently have nothing, and the PPC has nothing go currently right now. It's intriguing to see that there may be the PPC is a little bit underperforming. What some polling happened in the Atlantic, whether that translates nationally or not, is still intriguing to see, and whether that has an effect in terms of others' possibilities in terms of winning.
Well, the PPC is a very interesting party because they're unknown, but they're polling at around 4.3%, and they ended up getting just over 1% nationally. But this definitely isn't an area that they're predicted in any way to do well in the slightest. It's mainly Alberta and the prairies. I'm not going to try to pronounce that province. It's just I can't say it.
Saskatchewan.
But thank that two are really the areas they're mainly looking for. Maybe Manitoba as well.
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, a lot of polling said that their support was coming from rural and like what we would say white working class voters. So it'll be intriguing to see when those areas start reporting in, like the Quebecs, the prairies, and Ontario, whether that actually came to fruition or not, or whether there might be a polling error who maybe benefits from that. But yeah, it's
well.
Go ahead.
What was interesting? Sorry. Well, it was talking to various people is that then there isn't really any thing of where it's coming from, and many of it's coming from the Greens and New Democrats, or just from all parties that were generally more skeptical of the government's COVID policies in terms of mandatory vaccinations and a lot of stuff that moved to them, as they tend to be more skeptical of oversight from the government.
And just as we say that, another Liberal has been elected in, apologies for the butchering of Kate Prashant, and another MP has been elected. The Conservatives have also been elected another seat in West Nova. So currently, in the last few minutes, the two parties have both had MPs elected. So,
thank you, Nathan. So we're currently starting to move on in terms of projections, which is pretty right now. In case you've just joined, we're currently at a +4 for the Conservatives, a -3 for the Liberals, a -1 for the Greens, and the Liberals have taken the lead in the riding that the New Democrats were looking to possibly be taking their own. The lead that was in Dartmouth Coal Harbour. So that's now back in the Liberals' camp at the moment.
Very intriguing night so far. Doing very well. Of course, right now, a big interesting story will be how much of this will continue on. Of course, Quebec, I believe, is due in about a half an hour, if I have my time correctly, which will really begin the big chunk of votes to start rolling in. And also really starts the big questions for the two main parties of where their math is. Obviously, by the time we roll to Saskatchewan and Manitoba, we should probably have a good idea of possibly where this is heading in terms of anyone forming a government or being close to that magic 170 number. Let's remind you, if anyone wants to win a majority tonight, it would be a 170 is the magic number needed to win a majority in the Canadian Parliament.
So looking at what would be at the current moment, because many of the stuff in Nova Scotia and New Brunswick is kind of still early, though there's some decent results for the Conservatives in places like Cumberland, Colchester. But I think the biggest shock right is were to win coast of the central Notre Dame. This is obviously Newfoundland and Labrador is an area that hasn't been good for the Conservatives of late, and currently, I mean, it's a small lead of only 438, but even still, that would be a fantastic result for them. We've currently got 165 polls reporting So not over half in at the moment. It's looking somewhat good, but obviously there could be a high surge of Liberals, depending on where the polls are actually coming in from.
Yeah, it depends, of course, where the polling is coming in. It also probably depends what's being counted and what that final if it's close with the mail-in ballots. But yeah, Cumberland, Colchester, right now, 400 vote lead for the Conservatives, which is probably something that they probably didn't expect tonight to be in contention for. But I'm sure they would probably take this very happily right now. With
so polls have just closed in Saskatchewan. Very early affected indeed, but apparently that's been that's what Polling Canada has said. So unless they're wrong, then
on the question about the bloc, most polling late shows that the bloc probably will hold what they have, possibly gain a few more seats. It looks like the leaders' debate, especially the ones in French, really helped their standing in terms of catching up with the Liberals again and looking like they should probably be the largest party in terms of seats in Quebec, mostly because their leader, who I'm not going to try and pronounce his name because my French isn't that great, basically did what a Quebec leader has to do in a French debate.
I'm Yves Francois Blanchette.
Yes, thank you.
Important news, actually. The Liberals have just overtaken the NDP in St. John's East, which was a big result, which would be a big result for them. It would be what's currently being polled at the moment. However, St. John's East has been in NDP for at least the last 4 elections under the retiring MP. And so this is a brand new candidate. So it'll be interesting to see if this was simply in the NDP for the last 4 elections due to the MP or the party. But that's just into the Liberals.
If that were to be the case, it'd be an absolutely devastating result for the NDP to lose a seat like that. Seat they've held for some time, and transiting to the Liberals would be very much a big disappointment getting out of the Atlantic with possibly, I believe, currently with nothing.
Yeah, it currently would be nothing. Obviously, they've got some close areas that they have been leading in. However, right now it would be nothing. But it would be a big riding for the Liberals to take. Obviously, that previously has been the one riding they have failed to. Obviously, right now they're not leading in all of them. There's only one that they're not, which is Conservative. But I think that in any instance of them not taking a clean sweep, it would have been St. John's East that they would have preferred to have lost, if that's such a thing.
Indeed, and I think what will make this interesting is, of course, for the Liberals, they probably want to gain whatever they can with with losses possibly in British Columbia, and maybe some low-riding fruit in the GTA that maybe should swing this time to the Tories due to better swings with higher educated voters and higher income voters. But yeah, I mean, in the Liberals' case, if they were to take this seat, they'd probably be thrilled. I mean, you can lose a few seats to the Tories, but taking one off the NDP is probably, you'll take it in this sense.
By the way, just to update, the Saskatchewan one was apparently wrong. So I'm going to be very annoyed about that. Sorry about that.
You and that province. I mean, maybe you and that province need to have a fun arrangement with each other.
I think we need to have that. Now, apparently there was a issue that they forgot about the non-daylight savers. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not an expert on this type of thing. I just wait for it all to come out. I'm a results man, not a man who looks at when results are coming out.
Yes, but yes, in Fredericton right now we have a fun. Because only one poll is reporting, but we have a 3-2-2 result with the Liberals.
I'm just seeing that there's actually just been a second poll come out, and now the Liberals are leading by 43 votes. So some progress.
Yes. And more, Fundy Royal, Rob Moore, the Conservative, is up by 300 with 12 stations reported in, poll stations. Manasakwa, recent shape, again, butchering it. The Liberals are up by about 300-ish votes, safe Liberal seat. And it looks like New Brunswick Southwest, the Tories are up by about 400 votes with 11 stations in, 410 votes. So far, looks like the Conservatives are not doing terribly bad.
So looking at the four ridings that they're currently leading, which would, if they bear out to be results, would be gains. Obviously, we've talked about Coast of Bay, Central Notre Dame. Currently, that's a 457 lead. But also, some interesting ones is Sydney, Victoria, South Shore, St. Margaret's, and Cumberland Colchester. Latter was extraordinarily close in the last election and would be a very important win for them. And Sydney, Victoria, also very close. About actually last in the Liberals, Conservatives, and NDP. So if the NDP are doing a bit better there than they did last time, that could be a direct transfer from the Liberals that may give the Conservatives that seat if the results bear out.
Mm. Yes, and of course, I should note that if one of the results holds, South Shores and St. Margaret's, a Liberal member of the cabinet would be in danger. The Minister for Fisheries would be in danger of losing her seat. So a possible cabinet member in trouble in terms of losing their seat. Mm.
Well, that's a very interesting thing because this is, this was over a 10% majority last time out. But due to the fishing possibilities, there have been a lot of anger with her policies in the riding. So that could really be an interesting one that they may end up losing just due to local factors, not even due to national.
And also, I should mention Liberal ministers. Canada's health minister is also in very much a fight of her life in her seat, very much a tough battleground seat, who also did not help her cause by referring to the Taliban as the brothers of Afghanistan. Probably not the type of wording you'd like to say in a marginal seat when the Tories want your seat.
So the Bloc Quebec are on the board and now you're going to see, once again, the more butchering of names, but in Gaspésie, la Île de la Madeleine, one poll reporting, so nothing much, it's 115.74 with few other votes scattered about.
Mm-hmm.
But there is some votes for the Free Party of Canada, so 3.
We note to our viewers that the Quebec zone that is reporting in is the very upper part near the Atlantic. They tend to report the results closer with the Atlantic. The rest of Quebec will report it in Nevada.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So Bonavista, Turin, Burin, Trinity, which had been going back and forth between the Conservatives and Liberal, has now been called for the Liberals.
Another result, which means they now have 6 elected members to the Conservatives, 2 elected at the moment.
Indeed. But that, after the interesting early returns, that is a fascinating result.
Mm-hmm. And a sigh probably of relief in Liberal camps, so they held that seat probably with decent margin.
Highly likely. So, looking around, I'm just going to have a quick look and update over the Dartmouth Coal, because obviously at the beginning, that was very much going towards the New Democrats. However, it's now currently a 13% advantage for the Liberals over the NDP. It seems like it was just nice areas for the NDP to begin with, and it's going back to its more traditional roots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and of course, when I mentioned West Nova, that was a seat the Liberals had high hopes for. That was a seat that they very much needed to their path to 170. So that being called for the Conservatives is very much something that they would hope that they did not have to deal with, but it does look as if their path to 170 has already taken one hiccup already, which will be intriguing to see if they get close to 170 or whether they're not even close at all to their 170 at a hope target.
Indeed, it's I was in it last time out. It was also an area that the Greens Party did somewhat well in, with over 10% of the vote. So it's interesting that there could have been a potentially a move from the Green Party, who actually didn't stand this time, towards the Conservatives, which would be an outrageous kind of thing. But you never know; it may still go Conservative, but close up in the latter parts when more polls come through.
Which of course the member of that seat is a member of the shadow cabinet, which probably will make Aaron O'Toole, who is appearing on one of the networks on a video screen, probably happy. But of course, and just as I say this, the another Liberal has been re-elected in Cape Beltran Canso. So another Liberal is elected, make that 7 leading Liberals tonight, elected Liberals so far.
Just having a quick look at Coast of Bays Notre Dame, the Conservatives currently have their largest lead of the night of over 1,000 votes, 1,044, which is now a 6-point advantage. Which is we've got 56 polls coming back. That haven't come back. So it's quite a decent amount of weight into the vote, which is looking more and more likely that it potentially end up pick up. Which result?
A seat that the Tories would be very happy to get, especially if they're getting a seat like that. That means that their numbers in the Atlantic are very much in a good spot, and that the Main Street region, the last few polls possibly were not right when they were doing their final writing polls. So sure, nothing against Main Street. They're very respectable pollster, but that just was brought up to my attention from someone I follow on Twitter who follows me.
Well, not everyone's going to be 100% accurate with their seats, but right now that would be an extraordinary result that I don't think anyone really saw coming. But
a 49-43 margin would be quite something. A big hurt to the Liberals. They were to lose that seat.
Indeed. Central Nova, I can't remember if you reported that apparently is an elect.
What happened with Central Nova? You cut off.
For the Liberals. Yeah, sorry. Central Nova is an elected seat for the Liberals. Currently, with 70 polls reporting, 70 with 44% of the vote to 33% of the vote to the Conservatives.
Once upon a time, the safest Tory seat in the Atlantic when Peter MacKay held it. The strange fascination of personalities holding seats that then lose. The parties lose that vote share when they leave.
Also, the best named riding, Fundy Royal, has been officially. Wait, did you mention Fundy Royal?
No, we have not.
Oh, sorry, it only just came up on CBC. Oh, yeah, you have not. Well, it's just been officially elected for the Conservatives.
Oh wow, very good. So another rejection for the Conservative. The all good, by the way, for those who ask, is just that we have another person elected, which mean good in terms of the night's moving fast. No partisanship here. We are very
Indeed, it was really a seat that was likely to go Conservatives. They had a considerable majority, though they did actually gain it in the last election, as they gained every seat in.
Of course, one thing
that they currently have.
That is going to be interesting to be brought up. Brian Burkett, who's too close to call on Twitter, I would recommend him to be followed. It's been a good point. If the polls were wrong in the GTA, if the polls were as wrong as they are in the Atlantic, and this is possible in the GTA, we could have a very interesting night in terms of what happens in Ontario, if this were to be a national trend. Of course, it's one region, we don't know whatnot, but it would be very fascinating if there's a polling error possibly nationally, and this could really upend the result of the night.
Indeed. He's also put West Nova is the first pick of the model. Chances for the CPC were at 43%, though, so not a big surprise. So if that is a model error that's happened, then we could be seeing an extraordinarily interesting night. And as we say that, New Brunswick, Southwestern is officially that has been a new elected seat.
You broke up about the New Brunswick. I'm sorry.
So it's now officially elected for the Conservatives.
So another elected Tory seat, which currently, as of now, the Conservatives have 4 elected in the Atlantic, which is just 1 behind what they currently have. And rather importantly for them, they are currently at 9 seats in the Atlantic. So right now, if this were to hold, again, if it holds, the Tories would be coming out of the Atlantic with +5, and that would be 9 seats, would be an absolute win for the Tories in terms of what they needed to get out of the region. 9 is genuinely in the ballpark of what you're saying if you're the Tories in terms of you wanted to get out of the region.
But here's the interesting thing: is if West Nova, now West Nova is currently a 2,000 majority over. Now I think it's likely that the Liberals may end up closing up in terms of percentage. However, if it was so drastically wrong that they've already called West Nova, then that brings potentially even more, areas into question. Not just in across the entire area, but even in here, because currently the Conservatives, and this is only 6 polls reported, so it's nowhere near any indication of anything. But they're currently winning in Fredericton, which would be an astonishing result. Now, this is 47% of the vote, so it's all the caveats, but I think though that there could be a degree of greater feelings among the Conservatives if the polls are that drastically wrong.
Yes, and
currently, I will say that the Conservatives are up 5, the Liberals are down 1, New Democrats and Greens down 1, and Bloc Québécois up 1 at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, the Atlantic is truly shaping up to be its own story of the night, which is the Tories might come out of the province with their best performance there since 2011, which is something Aaron O'Toole will be happy about. And then the big question will become, if this continues, what happens in Quebec? And the Tories make some gains in Quebec, and then hope that if this is a trend, that the GTA comes out hugely for them. Because if they can get the GTA, that's a whole heck of cards that becomes a whole different scenario we're talking about. Of course, the Liberals, of course, may just hope that Ontario this time around is the fire saver of their government and basically hold their minority while disappointing maybe across the rest of the country. And ironically, the Prairies may actually be their help this time
around. Now, here's something that's interesting, because we're theorizing over what could possibly be a better than expected result across at the Atlantic region. Now, long-range mountains is something that we haven't particularly picked up on, us personally, because we've been focusing on all the various different changes. But long-range mountains, 200 out of 265 polls reporting, it's only 2% in it for the Conservatives behind the Liberals, of 587 vote gap. Interesting, because it was around 20-ish percent below in the last election. So that's an incredible swing even now. And if they're able to somehow take that just with results coming in, then that is still very much in play right now.
Yeah, I mean, that being close and other Liberal seats not being that great. I mean, if you're the Liberal Party headquarters in Montreal right now, I would not. This is very much not the results you were hoping for and anticipating possibly out of that region. Of course, the night is young, but I would have to imagine that the Liberal lead hierarchy would be very disappointed right now with what their numbers are out of the Atlantic. Of course, this is not over.
I definitely think they'd have expected it to be much better.
Oh, yes. And
sorry,
if this numbers are probably not the greatest for them. And if it's 0 for the NDP, that's also probably a very tough thing. And we will welcome here Harrison. Hello, Harrison. Welcome to our live stream.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. Joined us just as we're talking about right now, it looks like the overperformance of the Tories and underperformance of the Liberals so far in the Atlantic.
Yeah, that's definitely something I've observed so far as well.
But let's another seat rundown. Currently, according to the CBC, the Conservatives still, the Liberals, my apologies, the Liberals are at 24, 8 elected and leading in 16. The Conservatives are leading in 9, 4 elected and leading in 5, while the Bloc Québécois is leading in 1, and the rest, Greens, NDP, and People's Party, all at 0.
Now, something else I saw earlier, from earlier, I've just seen it now, but the Green Party are down 12% around, I'd say, 20 minutes ago. Which, if so, that would be incredibly interesting to see where that vote would disperse, because you'd expect it to go towards the NDP or the Liberals. However, if the Conservatives continue, where they're at the moment, I mean, in Cumberland, Colchester, they're currently leading by over 1,100 votes, which would be a gain, and quite a substantial gain. Now, there's only 90 out of 118 polls reported. However, it's still an interesting way in which the country may be moving, especially within the left-wing parties.
And just as we speak, that another call has been made. The Conservatives are projected to pick up South Shore St. Margaret's, and the Fisheries Minister, Bernadette Jordan, has been defeated. So the first member of the cabinet tonight to be ousted out of her seat.
Most importantly, that's the first gain.
Yes, the first gain of the night for the Conservatives in a seat that they probably did not expect with what was being expected to win, and that's a huge result for them.
That's an incredible result. Harrison, what do you make of that?
Well, it's definitely one of the more lopsided results in a riding at the moment in terms of a Conservative lead over a Liberal incumbent. But, I'm looking around the same general region at similar races that we could see called later in the night. Clifford Small is leading Scott Sims. That's another one I've been watching that's tightened up. It's now only a 1,000 vote lead. But yes, certainly interesting to see someone who's part of the cabinet go down tonight by a near double-digit margin percentage-wise. And
just as you were speaking, Harrison, we have another Conservative gain, and that is...
Where is it?
And that is the coast, the Bay, Central Notre Dame. The longtime Liberal MP Scott Sims has been defeated by Clifford Small.
Yep, that's what I was just mentioning as a race that I was expecting to be called shortly. Closer, but still, I mean, it is a good sign for the Conservatives so far to see both of these pickups.
I would say this is an incredibly important result that CPAC are reporting, because this is an area that the Conservatives seemingly had no chance. I mean, the too close to call. He said that they had a 5% chance of winning that in their projections. And that's the South Shore one. I've just spoken to Robert Martin of Lean Toss-Up, and he said there was no projected to go Conservative, but there was due to local factors. I'm going to ask him now, but this could be an interesting sign to potentially that the Atlantic region was kind of in between the various different models that were predicting in terms of throughout the election, which could make interesting going forward.
One thing I'm curious to see, looking at what is definitely a decided Conservative overperformance in the Atlantic region, is how this carries out throughout the rest of the country tonight as we get more results. Will it hold up? Is this just a regional trend, or is it a national trend? I think those are the questions we should be asking now.
Yeah, and I think if this is a national trend, I think if you're the Tories, I think this is a much better night, and now you feel like you have a much better shot of possibly at the end of the night being the party that maybe has a chance of being the largest party. And if you're the Liberals, this is probably a much more grinning night than they had hoped for.
Certainly. I'm currently updating a spreadsheet of these results as they come in for the gains for each party, so we'll keep track of them.
I feel like I may have been cursing a bit because Long Range Mountains, which I said could be going Conservative because there wasn't much in it, it's just been called for the Liberals. Still a 4-point gap between the two. However, CBC has projected it for the Liberals. Even still, a fantastic and go on that. Sorry, Cumberland Colchester has just been projected by CBC to also go Conservative, which is a gain.
3 gains in the last 5 minutes for the Tories.
Indeed, that
What's the total
though we should state that the 2 of the projections came from different sources. So the South Shore and Coast of Bays has come from a different source to the Cumberland Colchester one.
Indeed.
So are we up to 3 total gains thus far?
Give or take. I mean, yes, if you count the 2 other calls made by the public network there, but if you count the CBC call, it's 1 or 3. But yes, I would say probably 3.
It's looking at an incredibly exciting night. Would you not agree? But so currently the other one not to have been called so far that the Conservatives are leading in is Sydney Victoria. Now this is currently 39% to 36% with 85 out of 205 polls reported. This is the NDP, Conservatives and Liberals, and currently the NDP appear to be somewhat underperforming, but this is early days, so it's not entirely representative. However, keep an eye on that one. St. John's East, the one that I'm sure many people will be looking throughout the night at. It's currently 100 out of 182 polls reported, so over 50% of the polls. Currently a 2% gap between the Liberals and NDP, with the Liberals currently taking it.
Indeed, a fascinating night, and we haven't even gotten to Quebec yet, which is intriguing that we are having a very fascinating night, that the Tories are very much in this game, and that this might be very much decided all the way to British Columbia if this is a national trend, which is very good for us politicos, which I'm sure will make the political leaders of Canada much more thrilled to stay up even more late than usual for election night.
So, Election Barometer has just announced their forecast as of 8:57 Eastern EDT. I don't know what that is, but time zone that is. But that 97.8% of a Liberal minority.
Oh. They still are very firm.
They're still holding on.
I think they're very firm on it, because has tweeted that it's likely due to more local factors, and we're not seeing a massive national regional swings. So that could potentially be why. But
Yeah, I mean, one region should not dictate the whole region. Of course, once we start getting more results out of the big 2 provinces, we probably can be able to nail a narrative sooner or later what's occurring across the country, Canada, I should say.
Indeed. But what's interesting also is a lot of these gains currently are happening in Nova Scotia, which obviously is a re-election. Not the last election. The last provincial election went towards the Conservatives in a massive, extensive manner. So it could be seeing potentially that coming in very well. And as I say this, Halifax West has now been projected to go to the Liberals. I would also like to note that the 2 gains from the Conservatives that have been given by the CPAC are St. Shore, St. Margaret's, and Coast of Bays, Central Notre Dame, still have not actually been given by CBC. And neither has Cumberland Colchester by the other source. So it seems to be possibly a diversity in projections at the moment from various different sources at the moment, which is very interesting.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, at least on the results page, I'm looking at CBC Interactive, but two ridings where the Conservatives are currently leading by very small amounts that the viewers might be interested in that haven't been called: Sydney, Victoria, and Fredericton. Especially Fredericton. The results I'm seeing right now show Andrea Johnson leading incumbent Jenica Atwin, who actually was formerly a member of the Green Party but crossed over, by about 67 votes. Um, and one has to wonder if the split at all in terms of Nicole Byrne as a Green candidate has caused, or will by the end of the night, create an opening for a Conservative to actually win that seat.
It's quite possible and would be quite the pickup for the Tories, especially they came so close to the seat in 19, and with the changes of membership of the current MP would be a seat they would be very happy to have on their column.
But what's
Yeah.
extraordinarily interesting about this is that the Greens are currently at 14.9%. So if that continues in any degree of manner, that would be an incredibly dismal result for them. But we should also note that there's currently it's only a 2% and 67 votes between them. But most importantly, there's only 30 reporting polled, so there's still a long, long way to go.
Much longer
Uh,
than Sydney, Victoria.
Indeed, Sydney Victoria currently looking at 209, 5, sorry. Election It seems to. So also, some new projections that Charlottetown and Cardigan in Prince Edward Island have been projected to go to the Liberals. Prince Edward Island, all four are likely to be safe Liberals, because they have been for ages. At the moment, Malpeque is currently the closest with a 10% lead for the Liberals. And the other one being Egmont is currently a 16-point lead for the Liberals. That really should be safe areas for them. If they were to lose any seats there, that would be shocking. It seems like we've lost one of us, but I'm sure he'll be getting back very soon. So Harrison, what do you mean currently what we're seeing at the moment? Giving a little rundown of what we're.
Well, I mean, my personal thoughts so far, I don't know for sure yet if I would be comfortable extrapolating what is obviously in the Atlantic region a better Conservative performance than most of us expected to represent trends that will sweep the whole country tonight. But so far the three confirmed gains, and up to a possibility for five, depending on how Fredericton and Sydney Victoria go, certainly good. So it's a good start for the Conservatives, but I'm going to be looking to see how the rest of the night goes. Again, defeating Bernadette Jordan, because she is a minister, kind of is more significant, especially because that race was one that, as you mentioned, no one saw coming in that riding. Yet, still, Rick Perkins is leading by 8 points right now, which is a rather lopsided margin.
So we have a official result in Dartmouth Coal Harbour, which, if you were here from us, then
I believe you're muted.
sorry. So if in let me get up again. We've got two current projections that have come through. So in Dartmouth Coal Harbour, the Liberals have held that despite an early charge from the NDP, and in Sackville, Preston, Chescook, they have held that as well. Currently, both seeing quadruple digits. both. Nearly 2,000 in the former.
Another riding that I would look at is St. John's East, all the way out, essentially on the Atlantic Ocean. But the reason why I'd look at it is, it's a seat that is traditionally, I would say, a liberal seat, but it's currently held by Jack Harris of the New Democratic Party, who represented the seat back in the 20th century and then is representing it again recently. But he's actually not standing this year for re-election. And currently, it appears from the results we're seeing now that in a close race, Liberal Joanne Thompson is ahead of Mary Shortall, the New Democratic candidate in this district here. So looking at this riding, I'm curious to see if by the end of the night, and again, the chance appears to be going down because of 115 out of 182 polls have reported, but that would be, I believe, a pickup for the Liberals if they do win the seat. You're on mute again. Sorry about that.
I don't know why it keeps unmuting me, but
But what do you think about the Jack Harris riding?
well, the Jack Harris riding, a lot of people kind of question whether it's a Jack Harris riding or if it's an NDP riding. And I mean, what we're seeing right now is we've got it's now a 777 lead for the Liberals. It keeps on increasing every new poll that comes in. I think it's likely that it will go to the Liberals. It's a seat that was projected to go to the Liberals, and I think it's a seat that will likely be maintained by them. Sydney Victoria, that seat it's extraordinary tight. It's gone down to a 158 seat vote difference. Currently, it's a 1% gap between the two. The NDP firmly in third with 20%, but
currently closer than Fredericton as well.
It is currently, I believe, the closest seat, which is incredible to see. It's a seat that was incredibly close last time, and I think it's a seat that's is going to be one that's going to be interesting to watch.
Certainly.
And just to keep an eye on, because I think if that seat holds firm as it is, I think that will be seen potentially as one of.
You're muted again.
For some reason, the browser keeps on losing connection to the mic. I don't really know why, but yeah, it will be an important seat. Some new projections. Madawaska Restigouche has now gone to the Liberals as an election member. That's an important win there. Currently, right now, we're still seeing in Malpeque the Conservatives somewhat close. It's only a 674 vote gap, but for Prince Edward Island, that is a good result for the Conservatives, which, though they may not take the seat, it could give an indication of regional deviancies that may go in line towards showing a national swing to the Conservatives.
Yes, and Malpeque is one of the seats that has been discussed as a seat that we should watch tonight for a potential for a Conservative victory. I don't believe that's going to happen, but I think it'll be interesting to compare the final result once the other half of the votes report with the result from last election to see how the Liberal performance lines up.
Well, what's especially interesting about that riding is that we saw a fantastic result for the Green Party there. And currently they're down substantially at present. So where that vote goes will be an interesting thing to see, if it goes towards the Conservatives, the Liberals, or even both. Now, but what's even more fascinating is currently I think it's New Brunswick, we're seeing, or Nova Scotia, we're seeing the Conservatives up quite a substantial amount, but so are the Liberals, which would be interesting to that they're down in many seats and currently losing many seats and have been projected to lose. So I think that's could be an interesting element to look at because currently are the big losers there.
Yes, and again, I'm looking forward to seeing the results from the rest of the country because, again, it's hard to extrapolate trends within one region per se for the whole entire country because, by the very nature of the word region, the reasons for the deviation from expectation are often regional, and you cannot always blanket apply regional issues. But maybe not. We're going to have to see. But so far, we've had many fascinating races in this Atlantic region of Canada. And again, I would say that right now, the two races that I am still watching that haven't been decided are Sydney Victoria and Fredericton, because they both are potential conservative gains. And out of the remaining seats with votes reporting that are still up for grabs, I think those are really the only two where conservatives have a chance at picking them up. And then the last seat I'm watching is St. John's East, just to see if the NDP can close the gap with the Liberals to hold that seat. If not, that would be a Liberal gain in St. John's East.
Well, at the moment, what's been an interesting thing that's been stated is that St. John's has a large amount of mail-in ballots which are counted last. So that could be potentially a certain interesting part that if that goes towards the NDP, that could see them with a hold that many people did not project.
Certainly. And South Shore St. Margaret's earlier, where Bernadette Jordan was defeated, currently on the CBC website, there are still quite a lot of votes out. So they haven't officially made the projection on the site, but whomever you got the projection from, I would expect that they foresee the remaining votes breaking for Mr. Perkins and delivering the riding to the Conservatives.
Yes, indeed. I mean, CBC did state that this was likely to be a battleground. They had a report at the Liberal headquarters saying that there was a lot of nervousness, and we've heard apparently that people were scrambling for results there because they were entirely unsure. Now, this is Mariachimi Grand Lake. Very early results, but the Liberals only 142 up. This is only 16 out of 156. Potentially keep an eye on it later if if when the results come out more. It's certainly going to be
Which riding was that?
going forward.
Yes.
Miramichi, because it's very early reportings, but this was a marginal last time out. It was a very close marginal. So, with low returns coming so far, however, that could be an interesting one going forward.
Another interesting one, and this is something we're going to see later as we get into Quebec, is looking at the Liberals and the Bloc competing against each other for seats. In some cases, some of the most hotly contested races of the night I expect to arise there. And this is one of the ridings that we were all told to watch. And I cannot pronounce French properly. So
is it the one that's just Billy La Ile de Mandeline?
Yes.
The one that's actually being reported on. Yeah.
Yes, that is true. But I was going to point it out because Diane Le Boutillier, if that's how you say her name correctly, is Minister of National Revenue. So this is a close race. We were told to watch this race because the Bloc is putting up a serious fight here. Very, very early and very, very close so far. But we already have seen one member of one minister go down. We saw that on the coast. So, this is a potential for something else. And this would be a much bigger target if the Bloc wins, but very early.
Two things of note to quickly say that all of the now all the Prince Edward Islands have come in for the Liberals as expected, but most importantly, Sydney Victoria is now gone in the way of the Liberals with a 422 vote lead, with 110 being reported. Now we're halfway through the amount of polls being reported there, so we have a change there.
Yes, and I was just going to finish up talking about Gaspésie, les Îles de Madeleine, where Le Boutillier in the last election won by a little under 2 points. So a very, very competitive race. But again, if the Bloc does end up picking off a lot of prominent Liberals, especially as we get into Quebec, that is something that will definitely work in Conservatives' favor. If the Conservatives want a plurality of seats at the end of the night, which is still opposing what the projections expect, then they're certainly helped by Liberals being defeated by the Bloc and their candidates. And this is a rematch. But again, we can expect another very close race here. And by looking at the 2019 results, it gives us a good standpoint from which to compare in these rematch races.
So, sorry to interrupt you, but interesting thing to note, CBC have now projected South Shore St. Margaret's to go to the Conservatives.
Interesting.
So now we've got both sources stating that is going that way, because there was a degree of doubt between us of whether the fact that this hadn't been meant, it was the legitimacy of it. However, that has now come through.
It has. And again, that is the first confirmed defeat of a prominent Liberal who is a cabinet minister. And overall, the third projected gain, I believe.
Yes, it was one of the three that were gains to be projected. But interesting to note of this that it has been labelled as local issues rather than a signifier of national swing. So just bear that in mind.
And once again, as you mentioned, Jamie Battisti is back in the lead. Or Battiste in Sydney, Victoria. The Liberals now have a 497 vote lead, which transfers over to about 3 percentage points. So that is a riding where the Liberals are back in place.
So if we can just have a roundup of what's going on at the moment, we've got the Liberals elected in 18, the Conservatives elected in 6. No one else has any elected members. The Liberals are currently leading in 8 others, and the Conservatives are currently leading 2 others, and no one else is leading in anything. That would mean a net -2 for the Liberals, a +4 for the Conservatives, -1 for the NDP, and -1 for the Greens. This also transfers in terms of vote share: 42.3% to the Liberals, 32.5% to the Conservatives, 0.1 to the Black. They've only got one riding. 17.5% for the New Democrats, 2.8% for the Greens, 4.6% for the People's Party, which I think would be a fairly decent result for the People's Party during this area, especially expected to do well in.
Yes, I would agree with you as well. So certainly so far, if I had to pick a winner in terms of who it looks like it's favoring, if I had to just say the Atlantic region, I'd say the Conservatives are doing quite well. But if I had to pick the whole country, I have to see more ridings. I can't yet state what is going to happen or whether or not the projections, because the projections right now are for a Liberal plurality or a Liberal minority, essentially. But there's a chance that there could be a Conservative minority. We have a question: will the People's Party win 1 seat? That's very questionable. If it had to be, I can't pronounce the seats properly again, but
I kind of spoke to some people about this, because I think that no one really knows how to poll the People's Party, because we saw last time out that people attempted to poll them and completely over projected them, and so we saw them completely capitulate and underperform. However, the likelihood of them is very difficult. Now, apparently, both from what I've heard, from all accounts I've heard from projections and predictors, and the experts are saying that it's unlikely that it will go towards Maxime Bernier. However, that there could be chances in the prairies and rural Alberta, because that's especially currently where they're polling really well at around 27%, which is
And that has been a major source of concern for O'Toole and the Conservatives as well, leading up to this. Will the People's Party pull away? I mean, I should preface this by saying that, as you all know, if you follow the big picture of the race, the Conservatives have generally had to moderate their positions to appeal more to the broader Canadian electorate. So it raises the question, could the People's Party of Canada actually have a decent surge in Alberta and Saskatchewan, these different places, more out in the plains region of Canada, where typical conservatism could actually yield some resistance to the shifts that the party has undergone under O'Toole's leadership during the very short election campaign.
Indeed, and I think it's very that Maxime Bernier even has stated on a podcast with Jordan Peterson that this isn't a party that he's attempted to get in government. He's not using, in policy based on polling. He's doing it based on principles and ideology. So, it's highly likely that Maxime Bernier could, do what he intends to do, which was to be in effect a protest party to the Conservatives, and which I think could arguably be more impactful than if Maxime Bernier actually does win a seat, because that dramatically changes the makeup of what the Conservative Party could look like going into the next leadership. If what happens if they do have this effect, and O'Toole would probably end up losing the leadership. So I think the question is that what do you want the aims of the party to be? Do you want it to be to win a seat, to stop the Conservatives from winning, and to make them more right wing? And in which case, that could definitely have an effect. And you never know; they may steal a seat in one of the prairies or Alberta.
Yeah, that's certainly something we've seen as a possibility. I would like to direct the viewers to some updates that we've seen as well, and I'll bring them back here for a second. In my favorite new French seat, Gaspésie, I'll just abbreviate it at that. The Bloc candidate, Guy Bernatchez, I'm not sure how French his name is pronounced, though I assume fairly French, is back in the lead. So the Liberal incumbent, Diane Leboutillier, is down narrowly. And again, take these returns with a grain of salt, because only 10 out of 223 polls have reported. So thus far, we've actually got a very close riding race there. But this is a good bellwether test. And I'll say it for two reasons. Looking at someone like Leboutillier, definitely an important figure within the Liberal circles, the Minister of National Revenue. So that is big on its own. But also, this will show us, it'll act, one might say, as sort of a litmus test to see how successful the Bloc's other attempts to defeat Liberal incumbents in ridings in Quebec will be later in the night. So if this goes well for the Bloc, that could be a good sign. And if you couple that with Conservative gains, it could yield a result that is worse for Liberals than expected, which will certainly end up putting Justin Trudeau on hot coals should the outcome be less than favorable to expectations.
Two more Sydney Victoria, which the Liberals have slightly pulled out a greater lead at 369 votes ahead, with 118 polls reporting. But also in Miramichi Grand Lake, where the Conservatives have taken the lead by a tiny margin of 172 votes, and there's still a long way to go, only 25 polls reporting. However, that's an important seat, and the Conservatives are now leading in it. And now the King's Hunt has now been projected to hold the Liberals. surprising it took so long, considering it's 2,000 votes lead, which translates to 11% at the moment. However, that is now firmly in the Liberals column at the present.
Yes. And again, for the seat count update, the Liberals have elected 19, the Conservatives 6, and that is out of 338 ridings. 170 are needed for a majority.
Indeed, but I think what we can both agree is right now we're mainly waiting for Quebec to start coming in when those polls close, which I think is likely to be very soon. But currently we've got a few seats. Yeah, we've got a few seats currently not yet projected from anyone at the moment, which is obviously just below La Ile de la Madeleine, Miramichi, Grand Lake, Fredericton, and Sydney, Victoria, which are and also Halifax, which is a riding that we haven't really spoken about that much. Currently, what we're looking at is the incumbent for the Liberals trying to fend off the New Democrats, who are hoping for some good support in Halifax. And this really, if the NDP were going to try to gain in anywhere, I think that this was the main area that they were looking to make some gains in the Atlantic region. But currently 128 votes.
Yes,
with
and
78 polls reporting.
In terms of looking at some competition between the New Democrats and the Liberals in this region, Halifax and St. John's East, the latter of which is essentially a perpetual bellwether or has been for quite some time. Those are both great examples of hotly contested ridings between the NDP and the Liberals, whereas something like Fredericton in this case is contested three-way, one might say, or four-way, really. So to briefly explain Fredericton, the incumbent, Jenica Atwin, who is now a Liberal, was initially elected last time around as a member of the Green Party, but due to disagreements with the party leader, Elizabeth May, she determined or opted to join the Liberal faction. And right now she is in a narrow second place with 34%. Conservative Andrea Johnson is leading in that seat with 36%. And the Green candidate this time around, Nicole O'Byrne, is actually in fourth place, narrowly behind the New Democratic candidate. So the question in that seat is, do we vote based off of party, the Green Party, or do we vote based off of our incumbent, based off of, in this case, Atwin? And it looks like at this point, either Atwin will win re-election or the Conservatives will take the seat. But a Green victory here seems pretty much impossible given the current returns.
But it's extraordinarily interesting because what we're seeing from these numbers is likely that many Green voters actually went to the NDP. Because the NDP were below 10% by a decent amount last time out, and they're currently at 15%, which would see a degree of transfer towards them. But I think that there has been a substantial amount of Green voters who've gone with Jenica Atwin. However, the Conservatives seem to have made some gains from probably some Liberals who were a little bit unsure of Trudeau, perhaps.
Yes. And again, in Gaspésie, La Ile de Madeleine, the lead keeps being tossed back and forth like a hot potato. Now the Liberals are back in the lead. Le Boutillier actually leading 44% to 37%, with 15 out of 223 polls reporting. And we're going to have many more close matchups between Bloc candidates and Liberal candidates as we get polls closing in Quebec very shortly. Definitely we will have results for you within the coming hour. As for St. John's East, with 140 out of 182 polls reported in, it currently appears that Joanne Thompson is likely to, come the end of the night, flip this riding to the Liberals from the New Democrats. This is the Jack Harris riding. Currently, she's leading by nearly 1,500 votes, a lead of about 6 percentage points. So if that holds up once we start to get those mail-in ballots, then that should be the first official Liberal gain of the night. In this case, it would be a gain from the NDP.
So right now, the polls are officially closed in Quebec, Ontario, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and the Northern Territories.
Here we go.
So what we're going to be seeing is so many ridings. We're probably not going to be able to tell you all of the ones that have been elected. However, we'll do our
And
absolute best
I
because we're going to
will-
see an absolute onslaught.
I know.
Uh,
And for the viewers that are wondering, some of the ridings will be forgotten about at first, but I have a spreadsheet and I'm getting around to all of them. So I promise I will let you know whenever we have a confirmed riding that changes hands, and whenever I will let you know results in ridings that could change hands that are hotly contested.
Indeed, and you know, a lot of these seats for these extraordinary small, Stanley missed them, especially in the Quebec and Toronto areas and surrounding. But we actually have our data from the suburbs of Quebec, which is surprisingly the Liberals winning by 12 votes. For 16, it's a 12-3 just expect for a lot of mispronunciations, but Argenteuil la Petite Nation. So
Yes,
that
we
is-
are now into French country.
we are now into French country, and none of us speak French. I actually was speaking to a few French students the other day. I should have asked them to come on and just pronounce them for me. That would have been very helpful.
Yes, I can do German. I cannot do French. So
Yeah,
it's practice. We will get by with our I guess you can say somewhat mediocre pronunciation, but the results are more important, and we are getting results pouring in very rapidly.
indeed. They're coming in. However, also these are not substantive. But what's actually interesting is because Coast of Bay Central Nitro Dome has been called already by a different TV network. However, TBC haven't, and currently it's been caught down to an 891 vote lead for the Conservatives from a decent way over 1,000, with 16 polls yet to report. That could be a lot more interesting than previously thought. We actually have our first votes in riding of Selkirk, Interlake, Eastman, and the Conservatives are leading by 69% with 92 votes to the NDP and People's Party. So
Yes, we're getting results all over the place.
it's coming in thick and fast. We're going to try to obviously prioritize. However, we'll be looking online at many of the
If you want to multitask, you can introduce new results as they come in, and I'll make sure I keep track of confirmed gains on the spreadsheet if you want to reference back.
Yeah. That's fine with me. So some of the big kind of areas that we will be looking at, if you want to look at various different marginals, a seat of Davenport, which many people may not have been looking at. However, that is a seat that is going to be a major NDP versus Liberal battleground, and was instrumental for the Liberals to hold it. So keep an eye on that. It was one of the closest in the last election.
And just a brief update on Gaspésie-les-Îles de la Madeleine, with Diane Le Boutillier still in the lead with 46%, currently looking like a 9-point lead. We've received a significant vote dump, so now 25 out of 223 polls reported. And again, the block right now is still down. This was a 2-point race last time. We'll obviously give it more time for results to roll in, but at the current moment, looking at results, it appears that we have a race where the Liberals are winning. Now, again, we can't extrapolate this to all of the seats where the Bloc is trying to take down Liberals in competitive races. But if this turns out to be some kind of bellwether for those other seats, then that is certainly a good sign for the Liberals. But again, certainly too early to make definite conclusions. Just thought you guys would be interested to hear that update.
So currently with the small results pouring in, nothing substantive enough to really report with, one poll in predominantly in these areas coming in. But currently we've got the Liberals elected in 20, the Conservatives elected in 6. The Liberals leading in 14, the Conservatives leading in 5, the Bloc leading in 1, which would equal a +4 for the Conservatives, -1 for the Bloc, a net 0 for the Liberals, -2 for the NDP, -1 for the Greens. However, do remember that the some of these are very low in, so that they're, especially for the -2 for the NDP, one of them is very likely to be one of these small ones that have just come in.
Now, one seat I would like to mention in the Atlantic region, mostly it has been bad for Liberals tonight, but one toss-up seat that the Liberals actually have won commandingly thus far, although there's still a lot of votes out, is St. John Rothesay. And incumbent Liberal Wayne Long right now is leading by 13 points over challenger Mel Norton, Conservative. And this was one that Conservatives thought they could win as a toss-up. So, they make up for it. The Conservatives won South Shore St. Margaret's, which was completely unexpected. So that would make up for losing St. John Rothesay. But I just thought I'd give that as one example of a seat in which the Liberals did actually overperform expectations in the region.
Indeed. I mean, I think there's been many instances of voters going by regional reasons rather than local reasons, rather than being, particularly impactful in terms of the national picture and changing that. However, this has been an extensive amount of ridings coming in. However, not much substantive things to note about. We'll probably look more in depth when things kind of come in. But one important, actually, one to keep an eye on is Niagara Central and Niagara West and Niagara Falls. These are ridings that could dictate the way in which the government goes. Whoever wins these types of seats, generally, especially Niagara Centre and Niagara Falls, more so than Niagara West, will be looking to make a clearer picture. Niagara Centre, which is currently for the Liberals, Niagara Falls for the Conservatives, both of them massive marginals right now.
And again, also keep a lookout for seats in which the Bloc could defeat Liberals throughout Quebec.
Indeed. And we'll be keeping an eye. The only real substantive amount of results coming in is at the moment is in ability Terrasimion. I can't do that. However, there's only 5 polls reporting, so not much. However, 40% for the Bloc Quebec and 31% for the Liberals. Just having a look at passing them out.
Yeah, at some point I might just start translating these.
I don't think Quebecers will be too happy with that. But last time out, this was a Bloc game, so it really should be a seat that they'll be looking to hold. So,
yes. Meanwhile, back in our original Atlantic region, we're just waiting for those last results so we can have conclusion in St. John's East, Sydney, Victoria, Fredericton, and later on Gaspésie, L'Île. So those are all seats in that region we're watching.
Also, Miramichi Grand Lake, which the Conservatives are currently leading by 586 votes. This currently would be a gain. And also, Sydney Victoria, the Liberals currently by 763. The Conservatives were leading it for a substantive amount of time. And this is a big marginal. So that's an important one to look at as well.
Also, Halifax at the moment is actually a closer race between a Liberal incumbent and an NDP challenger than St. John's East, the bellwether. So that's still one out there that the NDP might be looking to potentially upset.
4% in it at the moment, 852 votes. So not much percent in it, and with Halifax having the largest amount of mail-in ballots from the Atlantic region, that could play an important part.
Yes, both of those seats could definitely remain in doubt for a significant amount of time.
An interesting currently riding. Nothing much to look into it, but currently the People's Party are in second in Abitibi Bay James Nunavik AU, though it's only 17 to 12 votes, but a nice little run showing from the People's Party early on there. I think in places such as in the prairies, people, I guess, were somewhat interested in how it would go with the People's Party. Looking at the only mildly substantive amount of vote, only 5 polls reported in Selkirk, Interlake, Eastman, the People's Party on 7%, which would be a very big increase if that was the case. Nothing enough to upset the Conservatives, who had an incredible.
Sorry to interrupt, but we do have our first results in from, how do you say, is it Boos? The Berniers.
Boost. Yeah, Boost.
Yep. Barely any votes in. We have about 6 votes in at the moment, but Philippe Alexandre Langlois from the Liberals is leading Richard Lahou at the moment.
Yeah, only 3 votes to 1, so not much major in there, but always
We'll
nice
watch
to see a
that
beginning
seat
there.
because if there's a seat the People's Party wants to win, that's it.
Yes.
In Quebec, I should say, not.
I was going to say that I'm sure they're hoping to win any seat they can get, but yeah, I mean, I think that's the seat that most people are probably favouring them into going in, but many of the people known as experts have been stipulating that over whether that's legitimately going to happen. But there isn't much we can really read into Quebec at the moment, just because it's so early on right now. But it obviously that's influencing many of the leading and results, especially in the net gains. So we'll see what happens in a bit longer time to see if the extent of which that bears out. But so that's why we're currently, I guess, more focusing on Atlantic region at the moment, because there's more results coming through. Interesting to note, I mentioned this a bit earlier, coast of Bay Central Notre Dame, the result seems to be still coming in. It seems to be getting a bit smaller. This has been called by one network, however, others haven't. There's 14 polls left to report, so probably not enough, but that will be incredibly tight and possibly one of the main marginals going in to the next election.
Yes, certainly. And let me update our seat count. Still 20 Liberal seats and 6 Conservative seats. We're still waiting. We have a lot of seats reporting results at this point, but we're waiting to have some closure, some definitive results again after those opening gunshot gains that we saw at the start. And now is essentially the waiting game of any election that everyone will become used to. It doesn't matter which country you're following. Some countries take even longer than others to count, but especially when you're looking at the nature of legislative elections, it involves a lot of patience. You're on mute again.
So in terms of the popular vote, 42.3% for the Liberals, 32.2% for the Conservatives, 17.2% for the New Democrats, 4.5% for the People's Party, 2.9% for the Greens, and 0.4% for the Bloc Quebec. Now, obviously, there's going to be a greater amount of Liberal votes in because the Liberals generally lands and also, I mean, they've currently been elected in 6, whereas Conservatives only 20, Conservatives only in 6, and so obviously there's going to be a lot more votes for them.
Another thing worth looking at in Toronto Centre, the Green Party leader, Annamie Paul, is actually running to try and claim that seat from the Liberals. So that would be interesting to watch. Currently, the Greens only lead in 1 seat. Lopsided lead, but again, very early on here. As you all know, after the switch in the Atlantic region, the Greens only hold 2 seats in British Columbia.
Interesting. Fredericton has now switched to the
Yes.
Liberals with a 163 vote lead. So obviously, 80 of the
And
polls reported.
I almost spoke of the devil because I was mentioning that since Atwin's switch, the only Green Party members in the House of Commons in Canada have come from British Columbia. So Fredericton, it now looks like, if it holds, that Atwin might be favored to win re-election.
Indeed, though this would be under the Liberals, of course, and not.
We should add as well that if the Conservatives did have many successful gains, so if they don't end up winning Sydney, Victoria, and Fredericton, and I should add Miramichi, Grand Lake as well, then, or Miramichi, those would certainly be disappointing for Conservatives that were watching early in the night and seeing those strong performances. But regardless, the Conservatives can take solace in the 3 seats that they did flip tonight, especially in South Shore St. Margaret's. I think that was the most impressive victory of all of them, but also in Costa Bay Central Notre Dame.
Indeed, I think there's only 4 polls left to report in that.
And again, it's still very close in Fredericton, and there's still a large sum of votes out. And even in Sydney, Victoria, it's still a competitive margin, although I would say at the moment they have a better chance of winning Fredericton than they do in Sydney, Victoria.
Indeed. But I'd say that probably their best chance would probably be Miramichi, Grand Lake, but that's
that one. Well, there's still a lot of vote out
at the moment in the area.
I am curious to see once we get more votes and how that plays out there.
I think that's one we'll definitely be keeping an eye on.
So good news for Diane Leboutillier and Gus Bizet, now up to a 10% lead, 504 votes with 40 out of 223 polls reporting. So the numbers keep on slowly chugging in. Again, that is a race that the Bloc really, really, really believes or believed up to this point that they would have a chance at winning. So that's one of many seats in which I'm going to be looking at Liberal incumbents targeted by Bloc challengers to see how successful the Bloc ends up being in defeating them. Or defeating them at all. I mean, at this point, the Boutillier would be a very big target, definitely to take down, and we don't know for sure something like that will happen.
I'm just looking around to see if there's any, interesting votes coming through.
Yeah, it's really just a matter of waiting and seeing what time brings us, to be honest, because at the moment.
So, I mean, this is one I can bring up. Niagara Centre, an incredibly important riding. Currently, 8 polls reporting 99 vote lead. Sorry, for the Liberals. Very early days, but keep an eye on that seat. That could be extraordinarily important going forward. Because if the Conservatives are able to take that, that could be a real major blow for the for the Liberals in their hope to gain seats, obviously.
Also, looking at the Toronto suburbs, that has been a freshly opened wound, a true battleground in the truest sense between the Conservatives and the Liberals, competing for seats. I mean, much like the dynamic we've seen in suburbs in the United States, there is a dichotomy that you should definitely observe here in Toronto. And that, and then the other thing I wanted to mention, if you go out west, to Edmonton and Calgary, since we have results from Edmonton now, the Liberals very much want to win Edmonton Centre because that would allow them to knock off some of these urban Conservative seats out west and effectively regain in the general Plains Prairie region between, if you will, the two coasts of Canada. And again, I'm no expert in Canadian geography, unlike the United States, but that's something they've wanted to do. So I will turn our viewers' attention to Edmonton Centre. There's an embattled Conservative incumbent there named James Cumming. The Liberal candidate is Randy Boissonnault. But again, that's one of the ridings that the Liberals are definitely targeting tonight in Edmonton.
So the Conservatives have retaken the lead in Fredericton.
Oh yes, I see that.
By only 15 votes. So nail-bitingly close in that election there. But
for sure, every vote will quite literally count.
In every sense of the term. That is an incredibly interesting seat, especially considering the diversity and of the people there, and of course of the way in which it went to the Greens and then it's flipped. So that's going to be where we're really going to be looking to see where the vote came from, because if the Greens completely dissipated.
Yep, and there's still a chance for
and if the Conservatives gain.
There's still a chance for the Conservatives as well in Sydney, Victoria. Although, actually, ironically, the Liberals are back in the lead in Fredericton with 90 polls reporting right now. They have a 214 vote lead, so that is probably the closest race at the moment. If you want to look at a raw comparison of the numbers in terms of a race that has a significant number of votes reported, and in Gaspésie,
it looks like. It looks to me like Sydney and Victoria is looking ever increasingly likely to go uh, firmly into the branch of the Liberals with nearly 1,000 vote gain. But currently, in a lot of the areas, if you were to look at the general result, it would say the Liberals up 8, Conservatives down 5. However, many of this is due to very low returns. I mean, right now we've got one in Disney, Mississippi, Churchill River, with their Liberals 2 vote lead over the Conservatives with 1 poll reporting. So it's not necessarily representative. So just keep that in mind when you're looking through everything. But yeah, this is we're really just kind of waiting to see what's getting started, and we're kind of like looking at the battlegrounds at the moment, kind of seeing if there's anything in particular where we can bring substantive amounts of results coming through.
Yep, and again, lots of waiting, but I promise as we get more gains, I'll be updating the spreadsheet.
And, so some returns in Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill. This is a seat very close in the last election. It was a gain for the Conservatives in that election. Currently only a handful of votes, 1 poll reported, but the Liberals are ahead by 62 votes to 46. So not much in there. Very early days, but that's what we get at the beginnings of when new areas come in. Ontario, obviously, last election wasn't somewhere that many areas kind of swung towards the Conservatives. And even in this election, it seems like it's going to be a difficult part for them. So that there's going to be some certain seats where we're going to be looking at to see whether that could potentially be areas of which they could make impacts. But it's looking like it was going to be a slow beginning, certainly.
Certainly.
But I think that there are some seats that if you're Conservative, you're probably going to want to try to make substantive gains, at least in vote share. One that you're probably going to be looking to leak is King Vaughan. This is a seat that's currently we've got nothing in at the moment. However, this is going to be a very important seat. It was extraordinarily tight last election, so we're going to be keeping an eye on that one. Also, Kitchener, Conestoga, nothing in from that yet, but we're going to be keeping an eye on that one, especially. That was razor thin. And also an important area, Kitchener South, the MP there became an independent. It was Liberal, so was how this new Liberal candidate does in comparison.
Small update. In Fredericton, again, about 100 out of 154 polls reporting, and the Conservatives have retaken the lead, now leading by 72 votes. If there's going to be a fourth gain, it appears that this is their best chance in the Atlantic region to get one.
Well, other than Marachimi Grand Lake, which they're still currently leading by 363 votes with 55 polls reporting.
Yes, I still question the result only because of the significant amount of the vote that's still out.
Of course, but I think that they'll be hedging their bets. They could gain a substantive amount in that.
As for Sydney, Victoria, though, given the fact that almost all of the polls have reported, it's looking like that will end up likely being in the Liberal column at the end of the night. We're not 100% certain. You never can be, but as soon as we know, we will probably be able to assign that to the Liberal column. Same thing in St. John's East, and even in Halifax, you'll probably end up having 3 Liberal victories there, one over a Conservative, the other 2 over NDP challengers.
Indeed, though we should note that Sydney has a 900 vote majority, whereas Halifax has a reduced majority to 569, with a lot more still to come in. So let's wait and see. There's still could be a significant amount of swing towards the NDP with the latter parts coming through.
Yes, for sure.
Still just looking through into the prairies. Not much has really come in here. There's only really 5 ridings, and most of them have, only a couple of polls. There's only really one that's got anything substantive, which is Selwick, Interlake, Eastman, where the Conservatives are still holding a pretty firm lead of 1,500 votes, with 2,000. But in the important really lesson we can kind of learn from here is how the People's Party is doing. And currently they're at 8%, which obviously is not going to be anywhere close enough to take from the Conservatives. However, it could have an impact going into the other ridings.
And the results keep coming in Fredericton. 104 polls reported now, and the lead has been expanded again for the Conservatives.
I think that's going to be one of. I mean, we've had some, so far some incredible results in the South Shore, in Cumberland, Colchester, where the Conservatives, who last time out were just missing. It's a massive marginal. However, this time, so far they've got a substantive lead of 3,000 votes, so that's already one they've gone. And obviously in Coast of Bay, Central, Notre Dame, which currently has got a 700 vote lead. That's an incredible result from a long-standing Liberal MP who has apparently lost this result. There's not many votes left to count there, so that's truly an incredible result.
Yes, I would agree that it is a significant result looking at it so far. But we have 10 viewers, so hello, welcome. More than we've had so far.
Do you have any questions? Please go on.
Yes, please feel free to ask.
The best answers we can.
I will be back. I have to go plug in my computer, so I will try and rejoin. But until then, you can keep it up, and I will be back in probably 15 minutes or so.
Okay. All right. So, if in case you've just joined right now from the Atlantic region, most results are coming. We've still got a few marginals going, with Fredericton being the closest, Miramichi, Grand Lake very close as well. We're currently looking at 3 Conservative gains from that region. If those two continue the way they are, that will be 5, which would be a lot more than many pollsters predicted. Currently, we're just kind of getting early results from the prairies, Saskatchewan and Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec, and the Northern Territories. So there isn't so much we can really report of substantive results from over there. Just on the basis of that is, usually from what we're seeing, under 10 polls reporting. But we'll do what we can. Let's have a look at both 1 second. We've currently got not much in, as that's the way it is at the moment. We've got 8 reporting, with 46% of the vote going to the Conservatives. Now Maxime Bernier is on 13% and 18 votes. So again, very early days, but that's something we've got to look very closely at if Maxime Bernier is going to make any sort of leap back into a seat in federal politics. Currently, the Greens. Now, this is again very early days, but they're currently winning in Gatineau. with 71% of the vote, which is 80%. So again, not that much, but that's an interesting early result at the moment, which would be a truly unexpected gain. Just trying to browse around and see if there's any interesting results. Currently, Niagara Centre, Niagara Falls, two very important ridings at the moment. Both of them massive marginals. Currently, Niagara Falls federally in the last election went to the Conservatives. They're currently leading by 13 votes, only 4 polls reporting. They're currently leading the Liberals. And in Niagara Centre, 15 polls reporting. The Liberals have a 976 vote lead to the Conservatives. So that's two interesting places that we really need to be keeping an eye on. Jagmeet Singh's, there seems to be a glitch at the moment where Jagmeet Singh apparently is a Conservative in Brampton Centre. So he's currently got 32%. So I think that's just a glitch at the moment. And I'm sure that will be sorted out because as far as I'm aware, he's not a Conservative. That's pretty funny to see. One of the most important areas we need to look at is obviously Davenport. Currently nothing in at the moment, but I'll keep updated once I see anything from there. King Vaughan, nothing from there yet. Many of the marginals at the moment, we're not seeing too much coming in, but I'll keep an eye on some of those in Ontario at the moment, because Ontario is the substantial area of seats, has around a third of the seats. So it's a very important area to kind of keep an eye on, as well as Quebec, especially in terms of how the votes of the Bloc hold out. Currently in a Liberal marginal of Mississauga Lakeshore, the Conservatives will be hoping to try and win that. Currently they're ahead by just 20 votes, 7 polls reporting, but that's an important one we've got to be looking out for. Let's have a look if there's any other ones we want to look at. So Newmarket, Aurora, we've got not much in at the moment. Liberals are winning by 16 votes, but it's not much in it at the moment. So we'll keep an eye on that. Those are kind of the big marginals. We do have our first confirmed result, though, from Quebec as an elected, projected by CBC, and that is Magnetic L'Aube, which is 30 polls reporting a 3,000 lead. That's an expected result. Looking back at quickly Atlantic Canada to see updates there. 104 polls reporting in Fredericton. The Conservatives still lead by 127 votes. Into Miramichi Grand Lake, the Conservatives have extended the lead to nearly 1,000 with 75 polls reporting. Those two would be gains. Currently in Gillespie, La Ile de la Madeleine, which is in Bloc Quebec, but does do its polling earlier. So we've got more results from there. Currently 659 lead for the Liberals. And in Sydney, Victoria with 187, very close at the moment to the end. The Liberals have got 1,000 lead, so that's likely to remain a Liberal seat. And in Halifax, the Liberals have pulled out magnificently. Like the last time we checked, currently are winning by 1,400 votes to the NDP, who are hoping to potentially take that. So let's have another look around at some of the areas that have somewhat, a few areas reported. So let's have a look at Churchill, Kikawana, Asaki. Currently, we've got 10 polls reporting. the NDP with a 60% lead. Let's have a look at this compared to last time. That is a safe NDP seat, so that's expected from them. But it's still early days. Into Winnipeg, let's have a look in here. Winnipeg South, we've got one poll coming in. It's currently at 48% for the Liberals, 37% for the Conservatives. Only 106 vote difference. This is a Liberal marginal at the moment, so it's an important seat to keep an eye on. We're expecting greater amount in the prairies for Liberals, so that will be an interesting area to look at. Charleswood at the moment is currently in the Liberals. This is a seat that they'll probably be looking to regain from 2019, which the Conservatives did gain themselves. Currently 10 polls reporting. There's a 37 seat vote difference between the two, 43 to 37%, 38%. So that's certainly an interesting seat to start off with. Currently, at the moment, what we've got is 20 elected for the Liberals, 7 for the Conservatives. The Liberals are currently leading in 87, the Conservatives in 45. I've been muted. I don't know how long for, but I deeply apologise for that. But yeah, currently the Liberals are +8, Conservatives -5, Bloc -2, and Greens -1, which is especially interesting considering the success that the Conservatives are apparently having in Atlantic Canada. And so, but obviously, a lot of these are very, very early results. So anything really can change at the moment. Kind of having a look to see if there's any interesting results going on at the moment. Nora, that's the one we're going to look at. So currently the NDP are ahead with. I was on the wrong one. I can hit it. But let's have a look at Kenora. So currently we've got 12 polls reporting. The NDP have a substantive gain at the moment. They've got 23 votes compared to 177 for the Liberals. The Conservatives down third place. Kenora is a three-way marginal, and the Conservatives did gain it in the last election. So that's going to be an interesting look to see how that develops. But at the moment, a good start for the NDP. Dundee Bay, which is right next to it, Superior North. Currently, early results in the Liberals a bit closer than I think they'd want at the moment. There's only 74 votes in it, and currently it's only 13 polls in at the moment, so nothing too drastic, but that should be a safe seat for them. Having a look now, Fredericton, 382 votes lead for the Conservatives. Sydney Victoria has been called for the Liberals by CBC, so that's an important hold for them. So Earl Washburn of ECOS has said that it's very obvious that they're counting reserve votes. First NDP doing well in the Northern Riding so far. So that could be very interesting to why we're seeing a greater left-wing Liberal success at the moment. Should say left, because I say more left-wing because the NDP also doing very well in many areas, of which, as I just said, in Kenora at 60%. Now we have the first official elected representative for Ontario, which is Tari Sound Misoko, which is for the Conservatives, which is interesting because it's very early. This is a seat that was, the Liberals with a fantastic night potentially could have been going for. However, the NDP have a very good early start at 20% compared to Liberals 22%, and the Conservatives are at 44%. And apparently, CBC have seen enough to say that that is a Conservative, which, if it, which could be important going down the line. Niagara Falls has just been overtaken by the Liberals, but it's only 29 votes, so nothing too drastic. The Bloc Quebec have got their first officially elected member of Parliament in Bécaneur Nicolet Sorel. 25 polls reported. The Bloc Quebec have a 1,100 vote lead, 59% of the vote compared to the Liberals, 18%. That's a fantastic start for them in that seat, and I believe it's a relatively safe seat, but I shall just check. Yeah, that was a very safe seat, so that's definitely expected for them to hold, and they have done successfully. So let's have a look at Beauce at the moment. Beauce, obviously, where Maxime Bernier is looking to try to regain his seat, with 11 polls reporting the Conservative currently is in first place with 51% of the vote. The Bloc Quebec in second. Interestingly, Maxime Bernier in fourth at the moment, but very early days. So, still a very, very long way to go before we can confirm a result there. Let's have a look at some of the seats. Let's have a look at Davenport. Anything coming there? Surprisingly, there's still nothing going on there. In Mississauga Lakeshore, currently the Liberals have a decent lead there. They're currently just over 100 vote lead at the moment. The incumbent there, but that equates to an 8% gap. Currently at the moment, Kitchener Centre looks to be started off. Yet the Greens are indeed leading in that. So that's an extremely interesting result at the moment. Could be impactful going forward. So we'll try to keep an eye on that. I'm trying to see if there's anything substantive that's we can kind of have a look at that may be different at the moment. At the moment, it's still low reporting in Ottawa and Quebec and most of the Saskatchewan and Minnesota ridings. But we'll keep an eye. Looks like in Miramichi, Grand Lake, the Conservatives 1,600 vote lead. That looks like that could easily be a held gain for them. They're currently taking the lead back in Atlantic Canada. They had a fantastic result there. However, from the earlier results, it seems as if their vote in Quebec may not be holding up the way that they want to do after an impressive start. However, it's in many of these places, it's extraordinary early days, and what a place that's going to be a big Bloc Quebec v NDP battleground is Amitabie Bay James Nouvelle EU, which is currently at the moment actually the NDP down in fourth, which is surprising to me, because that has previously been an NDP seat. They did come quite down low last time, but even still, currently the Bloc Quebec. I'm saying the current vote from last time, with 17 polls reporting 226 votes done there for the Bloc Quebec. Let's have a look how Jagmeet Singh is currently doing in his riding. Banbury South. No, nothing's come up at the moment. There was a Banbury that was at one point towards the Conservatives. So I'll try to find that.
All right, I'm back.
Hello.
What developments have I missed?
So basically, at the moment, it's just kind of going through the votes. We've got Bloc Quebec having their first elected, one Conservative elected, and one in Quebec and one in Ontario. At the moment, Fredericton is a 382 vote lead, and Miramichi Grand Lake is 1,300.
Oh yes, I see that more of the vote is reporting in Miramichi.
Only one of those gains. Yes. Currently in Gaspésie, the Liberals are still ahead by 671 votes, so that's a good result for them at the moment. But mainly at the moment, it's just kind of going through the early voting and kind of waiting to see how things really divulge. But at the moment, the Liberals are up 6, the Conservatives down 6 as a net. Bloc down 3, and New Democrats up 3. But in many of these areas, is way too early to really have a proper to be able to properly measure this by any stretch of the imagination.
Oh yes, and I see the updates in seat count and the win for Bloc Quebec. So I'm going to update the banners that we have now, so we can inform our viewers.
The Green Party. I should also say that Sydney, Victoria did go towards the Liberals in the end as a fully elected seat.
Oh, it did.
Yeah, it has. Yeah.
Yes, I see that now.
Currently, at the moment, the Greens are actually leading in Kitchener South, so that's a pretty big. That would be a pretty big result for them, but it is very, very early.
Yes, and again, that's the name of the game for this election and any election. You cannot overestimate things when they come in early on.
Indeed.
I will say this is a very fascinating, relaxing election as well. Very interesting results. Very, I think, stable coverage so far, and lots of stuff that we have coming in to break down. A lot of stuff.
So we've got a new Conservative elected in Selrick Interlake Eastman. That's not very unexpected. It was a very big lead throughout. But the main thing we're kind of looking there is for the PPC vote. In fact, actually, at the moment, now in Provencher, this is only 2 polls reporting, but the PPC are currently in second place there. Looking at the neighbouring area of Portage-las Gieves, they're also in second with 12 polls reporting, though not enough to indent much into the Conservative lead. But fairly safe stuff at the moment. Currently, we're seeing some changes go on. The NDP are up another one to up 4, Liberals down to up 3, Conservatives. As I'm saying this, it's changing even more with the Conservatives now ahead in another one, and the Bloc Quebec down 1, so down 2. Sorry, so very very early days. We have another elected in Quebec with Saint Maurice Champlain. Champlain. Currently, at the moment, we've got. I believe this is the right one. Yep. So it's a 738 vote lead at the moment. 40 polls reporting. 43% to the Liberal, and CBC have projected that to go to the Liberals ahead of the Bloc Quebec. Also, we've currently got NDP's first officially elected candidate with Algoma Manitomin Capus. I'm not pronouncing that last name. But it's
CBC
Algoma.
has projected a Liberal government.
That's incredible. I think that was the general expectation, and I think being towards the Conservatives, the Liberals and Ontario seemingly as well. That's not unexpected. But the real question is, what will be the margins? The margin, I think, is the most important thing that people are mainly looking at.
Yes.
Because I think
whether or not this whole election ends up just being considered a vain election, it's futile if the result essentially is little changed from the last election. I think that'll become a serious point of concern for Trudeau, because a lot of people were frustrated with him for deciding to call this election. And if they have either slide back from their position with a minority government, or they don't really gain much from it, then I think people are going to start wondering, especially within the Liberal faction, how good really was this as an idea? Was it worthwhile or not?
I think there will also be a substantive amount of frustration from the Conservative side, in that you have a fantastic start to the election.
And I should just briefly interrupt. Viewers, really keep watching, because this is just a projection. We still have so many seats to come in, and we don't know what the margin of the government, if it ends up being a Liberal government, will be. So,
yeah. Sorry, I've completely lost my train of thought. But we are seeing more and more seats going to come in the prairies. However, obviously, there's not really much to go by in terms of how much vote is actually coming in, but they're all currently heading towards the Conservatives. And we actually have a few in BC, it seems like, coming in, though that is extraordinarily small amounts. So not much we can truly base it on at the moment. But yeah, currently at the moment, if I were you, though, if I was a Conservative, I'd be very annoyed that you've had such a good start in Atlantic Canada. But generally speaking, they seem to have not been able to put it up in the rest of the country, which kind of puts into question of whether the decision to go more left to appeal to more mainstream voters hasn't really worked nationally and only worked regionally.
and again, we're still waiting on the results here from these various other ones we're following. I would not leave yet.
No.
I'm excited to see what happens in Fredericton because of how close it is, and the fact that it's essentially a referendum on someone that many would call a turncoat from the Greens. And you've got only 66 votes separating the Conservative and the Liberal candidates.
What's very interesting, though, if I may say so, is that what we've got at the moment is in the net. The Liberals are net down 1, leading and elected. The Conservatives are down 2, the Bloc are down 1, and the New Democrats are up 4. Now, what we're seeing in the polling was the NDP seeing a seismic shift towards them. So that could be an interesting thing to look out for if the NDP are able to keep this up.
Certainly.
So, first one coming in from Alberta, kind of in the main I mean Alberta, but these kind of main bars at the moment. Edmonton Centre, which is currently a Conservative seat, but it was gained in the last election. 10% reporting. The Liberals are ahead by 7 points, but that only manifests the 88 vote. Still very early days. That's one to definitely keep an eye on if the Liberals are able to keep up on that. But at the moment, one of the NDP gains is in Davenport. Now, currently, Davenport was one of the biggest marginals, especially between these two parties. And Alejandro Bravo currently leads by 149 votes, but only 5 polls reporting. So still very early days there. However, that's certainly one that we need to certainly keep an eye on.
Yes, and I'm still looking at these results. And again, the races closer to the Atlantic coast, those are going to be the ones that will be decided first in terms of actual results being known.
So currently, an update in Fredericton, it is at the moment a 38 vote lead for the Conservatives.
Ooh, even smaller than it was previously. It has been cut down again. And this is truly a race that will be counted to the last vote.
That is an incredible result. Just having an update on both at the moment. Maxime Bernier is up to second place, but trailing the Conservatives who's ahead of 44% to 17%, which is a 503 vote lead in actual votes. Niagara West, a big call very early on at the moment. It's been called for the Conservatives. Currently, Niagara Centre and Niagara Falls are in the column of Liberals. However, those are still extraordinarily close. But Niagara West, still somewhat marginal, has gone towards the Conservatives. That's a big call. That's maybe a seat that if you're the Liberals, you may have been hoping to make a dent into. But apparently,
and again,
that's been called very early.
After falling short in Sydney Victoria, winning for the Conservatives, if they'd like to end up winning Fredericton or even in Miramichi Grand Lake, those would both be very good wins and they would both be gains. And that would leave you with 5 Conservative gains in the Atlantic region, which would be very good.
It would be good, but I think the issue is that it's 5 fantastic gains, and I'm not going to discredit any of that achievement.
Region does not help you.
Yeah.
That is certainly the problem. If they cannot extend this outward, then it is practically useless. Are you muted?
If you think about it as a +5, right, in Atlanta, the Atlantic region, possibly a +4 because Fredericton is going to be extraordinarily close. The fact that they're currently neutral is still not particularly good. It means they're -5 across, Ontario, Quebec, and various and the prairies, Alberta. And currently, we've got a small amount of bits from British Columbia, but that's really, we can particularly, but it's not particularly good enough, really, in terms of trying to get your vote out.
Yes. And another race that is actually, I would say it's tightened a little bit, but the Liberals still hold the lead is in Gaspésie, again with Diane de Boutillier, currently up by 5 percentage points, roughly 765 votes. So a close race. Again, this riding was decided by about 2 percentage points last time around, and it was certainly one of the I would not say necessarily a canary in the coal mine seat per se, in that all bloc attempts to defeat Liberals in competitive seats will fall or fail if they do not win this seat. But certainly it's one where they were trying to test how their fortunes might play out.
So Saskatoon, I think, is a very important area in terms of gauging where the Conservatives are, because obviously Saskatoon is an area. Not even Saskatoon, the entire province of Saskatchewan is an area that the Conservatives completely swept. Currently, there hasn't been much coming in from Saskatoon out of their 3 ridings, but one has come in with very early returns, which has the NDP ahead by 120, but only 3 polls have come in at the moment. So it's, again, not substantive, but it's an interesting for early numbers. Currently, at the moment, though, in their Saskatchewan, the Conservatives have been wiping the floor, and many of them have been elected. So currently we're at 24 officially elected for the Liberals. Sorry, 27 officially elected for the Liberals, 25 for the Conservatives, 7 for the Bloc, and 1 for the NDP.
Now, one thing I would like to mention, looking out on these in the plains, particularly in urban areas, in the plains provinces, like Edmonton Centre, for example, in Edmonton, that's a riding where the Liberals have been trying to grow their appeal. And right now, incumbent Conservative James Cumming is up by 1 percentage point. But this is a very close race, only 38 votes in Edmonton Centre. And one thing that I'd like to mention is if the Liberals do end up winning seats like this out on the plains, it could become something that nullifies any gains the Conservatives had in the Atlantic region. So the Conservatives have to be holding on throughout the country. They can't hold on through just parts of the country. And, there are 2 other ridings right now in Edmonton where the NDP is leading, but particularly these conservative urban ridings. These are seats targeted by the Liberals.
An important thing to note in both at the moment, the Conservatives are ahead by currently 1,200 votes. But Maxime Bernier only won 18% of the vote. But also an interesting thing to note is all of a sudden, because I said to you that it was very early in terms of the changes. Currently, the Conservatives are up 5. The Liberals down 10 now, NDP up 6, and Bloc down 1. Now, I mean, earlier when the entire region started coming in, that was completely different. And we're seeing, Niagara Falls has gone back to Conservatives, but that's only by 6 votes. As an example, Fredericton at the moment, there's been a lead extended to 251 by the Conservatives. So I think now it's starting to calm down in terms of, changes. It's going to be interesting to see how things go. Currently, though, interestingly, the Greens are in the lead in 2 ridings. I'm not particularly sure which at present, but that's an interesting thing to start. I'm not. I'm trying to just check if Vancouver Island's come through yet or not. Elizabeth May's riding is in at the moment, and
I'm starting to believe
at the moment
the momentum in Fredericton is turning away from the Liberals. I do believe that by the end of the night, we'll have a fourth conservative gain in the Atlantic region there. Personally,
I think we'll have. I think that'll be the fifth.
well, yes,
I
another one.
yeah, but just because I think that's though there's less, I guess, been reported at the moment. Miramichi Grand Lake just is a lot better for the Conservatives in terms of distance.
Yes, I agree. They both are likely to yield good results for the Conservatives.
So here's a question for you: if the Conservatives make ground on a net on the Liberals, how long do you think that O'Toole has, and how long do you think Trudeau has?
If they end up making ground off of their current position, and they end up coming out with more seats, which would be effectively just a smaller Liberal minority.
Sorry, I have to interrupt you. That we're seeing a projection that the Liberals are projected to win a minority government. This isn't official from CBC, but I have seen claims of a few people suggesting
on
that.
the CBC website they posted about it.
Oh, they have posted about it. Oh yeah, no, they said Liberal. I'm saying that there's projected to be a minority government.
Yes, and I think that's what everyone. I think that's what everyone has expected. But again, I think that it's going to look worse for Trudeau than it is for O'Toole, especially if the Conservatives come out of it with more seats than they won in the last general election.
I completely agree with you. I think that's I also think that the image of Trudeau is likely to go down.
And remember, this election was called by Trudeau. So if the result ends up being worse than the last election for his party, then we could be seeing the final hours.
And currently, now this is a lot of them still fairly early, so we can't look into too much at the moment. But currently they are at -8, which especially with the NDP up +7, that's a very important result in terms of the amount of room that Trudeau will have to wiggle around if he wants to get his agenda through, especially if his MPs start to go away from him.
Yes.
What's interesting at the moment is, again, early results, but we were hearing about the possibility of the People's Party hindering the Conservatives, especially in the rural areas. At the moment in Alberta, the last election, the NDP only took 1 seat. At the moment, they're leading in 2 seats. And even within that, it's very early days, but they're both very, very early and very close. Currently, the one that they are currently holding is Strathcona. That's only 3 polls reporting, but that's a 383 vote lead, which is a decent amount of the vote, but it's very early. And the other one, which would be a gain, is in Grechbach, which would be an incredible. It was really a safe seat for the Conservatives, but the People's Party only on 7%. I think that's mainly due to the area that's come in rather than the NDP that massively overperforming. But if Alberta and the rest of the prairies come in the way they did last time, I think that you're looking at a question of the real impact of the People's Party, and if really and utterly they failed. Now, also in other seats in Quebec and Ontario, a few percent could be all that changes it in context of those races. especially in a race like Niagara Centre, where the 200 vote 81 People's Party votes to the Conservatives would have put them substantially closer, but that's still very early days. But it's interesting to think about it when everyone was kind of talking about that. Currently is London, just again, very early days, 34 35 precincts reporting. The Conservatives are ahead by 10 votes, but this has a fairly decent sized majority for the Liberals, around 15%. And so if unlikely that they'll be able to hold it, but if it's remains somewhat close, then that could be an interesting result going forward.
Yeah, I mean, certainly there are still many interesting results. I'm still looking at races to add because we haven't had any new gains projected yet, but we do have results pouring in from around the country. So
what's interesting is that the Greater Toronto area, one of the most important areas in Canadian politics, currently is not looking good. Actually, sorry, to myself, breaking news: Maxime Bernier has been projected to lose his seat in Beauce.
And I mean, it is not surprising. He did finish in second place, but the incumbent Conservative Richard LaHoo that won the seat in the last election has been reelected this time around. So again, with that, I would say it's safe to say the People's Party will once again be finishing an election with 0 seats.
So looking at what Nate, I've just quickly had a look in chat at the moment. I can have a look at St. Marie. Is
very interesting. The Conservatives are leading in that riding by only 100 votes.
It's 1% at the moment. That would be a gain. So that's an important one that they're currently leading in. Quick side note to Fredericton, 75 votes is the difference at the moment. So we're keeping an eye on that one.
The results are coming in slowly but surely there, so we're just going to have to remain patient.
I think Liberals have taken St. John's East and Halifax, just from looking at how much is left. That would be my personal opinion. But at the moment, I think that the biggest issue with the Conservatives is for the second time in a row, they've really failed to make inroads in the Greater Toronto area, and the 905, which is two of the biggest seat halls in the country. So I think really nicely, I don't know what they can do to really gain the trust. I think that the Conservatives are really going to benefit more if there's a massive amount of hate towards Trudeau, much like there was against Stephen Harper, because Stephen Harper, when he was looking to try to get his fourth term, everyone moved away from him. Trudeau, next election, if he holds on to leadership, will be in the similar boat.
Yep, and the Liberals are headed toward victory at the moment, but again, it's just unclear the size of this victory. That's what we're waiting on.
So currently the Greens are leading in 3. The Liberals are leading in 110. They've had 41 elected, making it 151 seats at the moment. That would put them down only 4. Currently, the Conservatives are elected in 51 and leading 68, putting them on 119, which would put them up a net of 2. the Bloc Québécois is elected in 13, leading in 15, which put them on 28, which would put them down 4, which, if that was the case, would be the most amount of seats any party is currently losing. So the NDP currently is elected in 4, leading 22, and that's a total of 26, which is up 5. And there is one other that's down, which is likely an independent, because no independent was standing this time. But it's interesting that there's been this election called, which has cost the taxpayers a lot of money. But not been any substantial changes really and utterly in the balance of power.
Certainly
If the results continue as they are, which I think, how do you think that people will react to this? Because I've already seen, comments on Twitter about how much money's been spent on this election.
Well, negatively, of course, I think they'll view it as a waste election because it's effectively just repeated the same exact result from 2019. Overall, that's what it seems is happening.
And so what do you think about the fact that at the moment the Green Party are winning in 3 seats at the moment? Now Toronto Centre at the moment, Anna May Pool is in 4th place, though there's only 5 reported ridings, so there's not much we can really gauge from there at the moment. But if she has 3 seats but doesn't win, how do you think she'll hold?
You see, it's very interesting because both of the seats in British Columbia, I believe, where they're leading, are seats they already hold.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure where they're currently leading at the moment as the 3rd seat, but I'm trying to find it.
Yes, because yes, the Saanich Gulf Islands seat with Elizabeth May and the Nanaimo Ladysmith seat, those are both seats that they already hold.
Okay, so they're currently leading in Kitchener Central by 275 votes to the Conservatives, which would be a gain. Which would actually be a gain from the Liberals.
Interesting. Yeah, so, I mean, I don't think we expected the Toronto Centre seat to actually go to the Greens. That was always a long shot. But if the Greens do pick up a 3rd seat, it'll be a good way to replace their loss of Atwin in Fredericton.
Actually, so this is actually an interesting seat because Kitchener Centre, the seat where Raj Saini withdrew from the Liberal caucus and said that if he was elected, he wouldn't be under the Liberals. And at that point, I'd seen private polling which put the Greens in 4th place. So this would be an extraordinary result for him to come back from 4th place to win. But this is only 10 ridings reporting at the moment. I think the NDP at that point were the favourites to take it. They're currently down in 4th, but let's see how things go.
Certainly. And we're coming up on the 11 o'clock hour, so we should be getting more results. Always fun.
Results are simple and easy.
Yeah, and they keep coming in, which is the nice thing about them.
Indeed. Interesting note that the New Democrats have now only leading in 3 gains, and Liberals only down 2. So though it won't be exactly the same, we could be in a position of by the end of the night where we could see a near replica of the last election.
We have a question. Will Jagmeet Singh resign as leader of the NDP?
No.
I would agree. I do not see any reason why he would be heading out.
So I think you, if you understand why that is, you have to look at the context of, first of all, when he came in. Now, Jagmeet Singh came in when everyone said the NDP was literally dead. So he he came in and put the party back into relevancy. I mean, yes, he went down in the last election, but he still made a substantial enough of not to lose more. And if he makes gains in this election, which he currently is, and even if he doesn't, he's by far the most popular leader, so it wouldn't be his fault. What would likely be if he was to lose more seats, what it would likely be the result of is dissatisfaction or fear of a conservative minority. So there's tactical voting involved. That would be the most likely thing. So I don't see him losing, getting rid of. I don't see anyone challenging him.
Yes, I would be inclined to agree with that.
Just a quick update on St. Marie at the moment. It is currently a 101 vote majority for the Conservatives. This is currently, I believe, one of the tightest one with a decent amount of votes still in it. Currently even tighter than Fredericton. So that is what definitely one to look out for. St. John's East is now projected gain for the Liberals. So finally that's coming. Interestingly, though, Coast of Bays still hasn't in some news orgs. I say that I said that St. Marie might be the closest, but I think Niagara Falls 73 votes at the moment. 80 polls reported. 73 votes the difference between the incumbent Conservative and Liberal. Now that was a very close race last time out in Niagara Falls. So I think that the fact that this is closer but swing towards the Liberals may be an indication of what's really going on in that region.
Certainly. Again, I don't think we will have final results tonight either. So,
I think that it will be a while before we get the final results. But it's important to note that whether it will be a majority. But currently, vote share wise, we're looking at the Liberals on 34.5, the Conservatives on 33.4, the Bloc on 7.6, the New Democrats on 16.4, the Greens on 2.2, and the People's Party on 5. So on these numbers, the New Democrats underperforming, the People's Party underperforming, and both the Liberals and Conservatives overperforming much of the polling. But we still got a strong way to go in terms of vote share. And also, I don't really think the New Democrats will care so much if they're didn't perform as well in terms of vote share if they're still making 6 gains, which they are at the moment.
yeah, so that's something we're gonna have to look at.
But an important riding at the moment, which I kind of spoke about earlier, Davenport. Currently, the Liberal is ahead, has retaken the lead there. 293 votes ahead with 17 polls reporting. That's one of the most important ones to look out for at the moment. Also, another place to kind of keep an eye on is Edmonton Centre, currently on 36% to 31% for the Conservatives, an important hold there at the moment. Winnipeg South, Liberals still ahead there by a fairly decent amount, 1,200 votes. So that's pretty nice looking for them. Newmarket Aora, the Liberals just about holding on there by 64 votes. with 20 polls reporting. Let's look into Edmonton at the moment. Currently in Edmonton, Strathcona, the NDP are ahead by 1,500 votes. Currently in Gricebeck, which would be against the NDP, they're up by 521 votes with 40 polls reported at the moment. So that's a pretty substantial gain in terms of the People Party's impact. It's a 369 for them, so that wouldn't be currently enough to gain that if that went directly to the Conservatives. Just having a look at trying to look at the British Columbia stuff. Some of the interesting ones, which was Vancouver, Granville, two ridings. Not ridings. Polls reported at the moment. NDP are ahead, but only by 57, so not much to report there. But that's one we'll definitely be looking out for. That's one of the most hotly contested seats at the moment. So, looking at the current run of things, the Conservatives have 67 elected, the Liberals have 62 elected, Bloc Québécois have 19 elected, NDP have 6 elected. Currently, the Liberals are leading in 92, which would put them on 154. The Conservatives are currently leading 54, which would put them on 121. The Bloc Québécois are currently leading in 10, which would put them on 29. And the New Democrats, I say all this and things are changing as we speak. But the New Democrats are now up to leading in 25, so they go up to 31. The Greens are currently leading in 2. So it looks like they'll be holding firm in Vancouver Island. However, not making much of an impact anywhere else. Just to have a look at I'm just going to quickly see if I can just have a look at Kitchener, see how that is looking. May have to refresh this 1 second. Oh, Kitchener is actually that's interesting. So Kitchener is actually still currently for the Greens, which would mean that they would have to have been gaining Vancouver Island. So let me have a look at the moment, which looks like currently at the moment 9 polls reporting, so not that much at the moment, but currently the Conservatives are leading in Nanaimo Ladysmith. So that's an interesting area. Currently, I'm by myself at the moment, so I'll change the angle a bit. There we go. I didn't know I was alone, so interesting 3-horse race. Is this too early to call? It's already been called. So the Liberals will be holding on to government. The main question at the moment is in what form, which currently, if the results right now were stuck in stone, and this is what it would be a minority, a reduced minority, but like they'd only be down by 2, so it wouldn't be enough to make much of a Sorry, it muted me for some reason. So I'll just repeat that. I don't know when it was left, but I think probably months. If yeah, for some reason it keeps on doing that. I don't really know why it keeps on muting me, but I think that it's likely months. If it reduces enough, and I think the reason is not simply because of the actual performance. I think it's more likely just simply due to people not really being happy with him personally, which could impact it. Then I say this: currently at the moment they're only on a net less of 1, so it's not really much. It's not really anything to shout out about at the moment. They could still gain, and if they gain, then maybe they will. I don't know who would be the next PM. I couldn't tell you. I wouldn't even want to hazard a guess because I don't know enough of the Liberal establishment to kind of know who it would be. But it would certainly be an interesting thing to see for definite. But I do think there's still, though, I say that it will be months. I still think that there'll be a good chance to hold on just based on the results at the moment. The question will be those who would rise up and challenge. So I don't think he himself would resign on his own back. I think there would have to be a substantial amount of pressure on him to do so. But here's an interesting statistic, right? At the moment, according to what we're seeing at the moment, the Conservatives have a slim plurality in the vote share by 5,000 votes. And at the moment, the People's Party is at 5,000. And as I say this, it's now a 2,000 lead in vote share for the Conservatives. But if the Conservatives were to win the vote share, it would create greater questions within the Conservative establishment over what they do with the voting system. Because certainly, if it was a Conservative, STV or PR, they'd be winning. Well, they'd likely be winning, and they would have won the last election. But at the moment, obviously, that they didn't. And this election, again, another disappointment. I mean, I think O'Toole is gone. I think that's clear to me. Yes, he's doing fantastically well in Atlanta, but she lost the last election in what many right, and he was almost forced out because people thought he should have won the election. So if the Conservatives currently at the moment are on a net gain of +1, and one of those is in an area which is likely to go towards the Green Party and is only low because of the amount of time, the amount of poll data at the moment, then I think that he's definitely gone. Two important things to note: Justin Trudeau and Yves-François Blanchet have been elected in their ridings, so that's a standard victories for them, I'm sure. But so if you're somewhat new to here, two of the ones we've been looking at from the very beginning were Fredericton and Miramichi Grand Lake. Currently, Fredericton still Conservatives holding on with 219 vote lead, coming with very few polls left. We've got 135 out of 145, and Miramichi a 737 lead with 38 polls still to come, and that's the only two left in Atlanta that we're still waiting for at the moment. But those are two very interesting results. What's actually currently a very important result at the moment is in Chicoutimi-Lafointe, which is a Conservative hold at the moment, but it's the margins that have increased for the Conservatives against the Bloc Québécois in a seat that is surrounded by a sea of block blue. So that's an interesting result at the moment. Currently in the Niagaras, because Niagara Centre and Niagara Falls are two big marginals. Currently, Conservatives are ahead in Niagara Falls with just under half of the polls reported in, and in Niagara Centre, which but I mean, the Liberals really need to be winning if they want any hope of getting, if they would have wanted any hope of getting majority, which is seeming even more unlikely now. But that's a 365 vote majority for the incumbent Vance Badaway of the Liberals. So that's an important hold for them at the moment, and the Conservatives really need to be winning a seat like that. Interesting again, looking at the Greater Toronto area, the genuine lack of Conservatives. They're only holding Thornhill at the moment, but other than that, it's a complete sea of red at the moment. Which, if you're trying to, it would be cool if you stay here with us until every. Well, I can try to. I can set. I'll definitely try to. But it really depends on how long it takes for BC to come in. I'm sure, hopefully someone will be here. But as you can tell, I'm from the UK, so it is currently 4:15 at the moment. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But I'm currently doing well in terms of fatigue, so we'll be hopeful. We'll be hopeful. If the CBC have projected a Liberal government, the question is what. Actually, as I say this, the CBC have projected a Liberal minority government. So, in effect, very little has changed. Currently, at the moment, the Conservatives have officially elected 78, Liberal 75, Bloc 20, New Democrats 6, People's Party and Greens 0. However, if you combine with the leading 155 for the Liberals, 122 for the Conservatives, 29 for the Bloc, 29 for the Liberals, and 2 for the Greens, and 0 for the People's Party. Which, in context, is at -2 for the Liberals, +2 for the Conservatives, -3 for the Bloc, +5 for the New Democrats, -1 for the Greens. And then there's other -1 because they didn't stand. Nova Scotia. Nova Scotia's all done. At the moment, it's only we're waiting for 2 in New Brunswick, but Nova Scotia's done. There were in the end 2 net gains for the Conservatives. 2 big gains, to be fair, in South Shore and in Cumberland Colchester. I assume that's what you're referring to. Correct me if I'm wrong, but let's have a look and see about Edmonton at the moment, because Edmonton at the moment. So we've got a call in Edmonton at the moment for Strathcona, but I think that was already a safe NDP seat, so that's not particularly unexpected. But in Griesbach at the moment, it's a 546 vote lead at the moment for the New Democrats and the Conservatives. This will be a New Democrat gain. The People's Party on 599, so that would give the Conservatives a very, very slim lead if the People's Party weren't there. Something interesting to note if that continues around the same margin, but still fairly early. In Saskatoon, there's only currently 1 at the moment that is looking potentially like it could go to the NDP. Now, if you remember correctly, last election, everyone in Saskatchewan, every seat, sorry, went to the Conservatives. So this would be a gain. This is in Saskatchewan West, which was the most marginal seat and was a gain in the last election. The NDP is currently ahead by 79 votes, so it's still really all to play for at the moment. To be fair, 79 votes is meaning 2%, which is kind of interesting to see, but that is 60%. 60 polls reporting. I'm used to saying percent because of America and UK stuff. But yeah, at the moment, in terms of popular vote, the Conservatives are ahead on 34%, the Liberals on 33%, the Bloc on 8.1%, and the New Democrats on 16.7%, with the Greens on 2.1% and the People's Party on 5.1%, which some people like Ecos had them on 10%. So I don't know what's going on at the moment with that, but yeah. Interesting at the moment. Currently, I mean, this is very early vote with Jagmeet Singh only with a 5% lead in Banbury South. But again, very, very, very early. There's only like 10 reported there. So yeah, that's a look at that at the moment. But what is interesting to me is if muted again. That's annoying. Yeah. I don't know if there's any questions at the moment. There isn't too much new to report at the moment. It's just everyone's kind of going through the numbers. There isn't much changing in the electoral map at the moment, which is, I'm sure, frustrating for many Canadians that this whole election was called with seemingly little reason or change or in the seat share. So what's going on at the moment? Not particularly too much. What's interesting to me is this Davenport one, because this is, I think the NDP have made some fantastic gains at the moment. However, this is one that really nasty. They're going to be kicking themselves for not winning. It was one of the biggest areas of which they could have made inroads in terms of the Liberals. It's an area that they particularly felt as if that it would be an important place to win. The candidate was well established in the area and had done a substantive amount of campaigning. I think that there'll be, if there's many seats that they will be kicking themselves they didn't win, I think that's certainly up there at the moment. Thornhill actually is looking quite a bit of a not so shooing for the Conservatives at the moment. I mean, Thornhill last time, just having a look, it was quite substantive for the Conservatives, but at the moment it's only a 991 vote lead, 7%. Well, actually means there's over half in at the moment. That potentially could be an interesting area of to for the Liberals to make substantive amounts of gains. Having a look around in other areas. Kitchener Centre, still pretty much no movement. Interestingly, though, Saint Marie has now gone into the Liberal hands. 27 votes in it, though, so still all to play for, and a lot of votes still to be counted. In Thunder Bay, Rainy River, the incumbent looks like he's probably going to win this. There's 525 votes in it. If the People's Party had gone directly to Conservatives, they would actually have won that riding. So that's an interesting stat for you there. But generally speaking, I think this election pretty much is over. There's no path for at the current level. There's no path for the Conservatives. There's no path, seemingly for the. I mean, it's been projected that there's no path for the Liberals at the moment. So it really nasty at the moment. It's mainly just a formality, and I guess trying to work out the end of the vote share and the final specific results. But Aaron O'Toole, has officially been elected. I think, but now that at the end of this, I'm interested to know what's going to happen to the People's Party, though, if they continue. I'm trying to have a look. Is there any questions at the moment, or anything anyone wants to say? I guess we'll just have a look and see various different areas. So we'll have a look at Edmonton, Greifswald. At the moment, the NDP seems to be holding firm at the moment. Currently, 600 votes still in it. At the moment, I feel like everyone's just had a break from counting. So there's very little movement I've seen in many areas, which is kind of annoying when you're trying to keep an eye on certain scenes. But at the moment, we have the Liberals leading elected 157 and the Conservatives 121, which, if you're unaware, is the actual direct transition, the exact result from last time. Which I think at this stage, especially, if that doesn't tell you where we're at, I don't know what else that can really tell you. That's kind of like it. I think that's going to have an impact on people's perception on Trudeau. The fact that he just called an election in what many perceive to be a very dangerous time, for, in effect, nothing. But hey, at least it got some nice interest into Canadian politics. Let's have a look. Calgary at the moment has got one Lib leading by 237 votes in Calgary Skyview. If the People's Party went to the Conservatives, they would be in the lead, but not by a substantial amount. But there's 70 polls reporting at the moment, so plenty of time for the Conservatives to make that up. In Saskatoon, all of them have gone back to the Conservatives. The Saskatoon West, which previously not. It's only 397 votes in it, so it's still pretty close, but that's currently looking like potentially another sweep in Saskatchewan for the Conservatives, which, the prairies especially are the most conservative area. So the fact that they're able to hold deep in what many perceive to be a non-conservative party platform would be a fascinating. So Anime Pool has lost her riding officially, and is currently in fourth place at the moment on 9% of the vote, so it hasn't really made much of an impact. Currently, the Liberals are now +1 and the Conservatives are -1. New Democrats are +5, Bloc Québécois -3, Greens -1. But there are many areas that have just done very little in terms of actual vote counting. I think there's in Kitchener. I'm just checking to see. In Kitchener, there's been some movement, but generally speaking, the margin has stayed very similar. It's at 899 votes, but that's looking for the Greens to take. Somewhat unexpectedly, at least from my perspective. Bay of Quint was a marginal going into this election, and Conservatives doing very well there. Yes, but it's interesting to me how little movement there generally is at the moment. But I don't really see much happening that would cause any difference in the actual chamber itself. That's what it means. Yeah, right now it's in Sudbury. Currently, NDP are ahead for 33%. The Liberals are behind on 32.3%. Conservatives on 25.9%. PPC is 6.2%. Greens are 3.2%. Minority Libs how? Votes primarily. No, what it is the Conservatives just didn't make a breakthrough in any. They made a breakthrough in the Atlantic region, but the issue is that the Atlantic region, where they got 5+ was just offsetted by a poor performance in Quebec and Ottawa. So I mean, at the moment, there is currently a dead heat at the moment. So they've pretty much lost 5 probably indirectly, but it's as if they've lost 5 directly to the Liberals. Currently, the New Democrats up by 5, Bloc Québécois down by 3, Greens down by 1, and then other down by 1. But yeah, it's been a fascinating election at the moment. In Hamilton East, Stony Creek, the Limbs are ahead by 33.6%, NDP 28.4%, Conservatives 28%. So that's looking incredibly close at the moment. 125 out of 197 polls at the moment. The interesting thing, though, about Anna Maple losing her seat, she's currently on 8%, despite the fact that most of her campaign was in Toronto Centre. So I think that's incredibly interesting that such extensive amount of campaigning in a single area has just amounted to nothing. Calgary Sky still very close at 39.8 to 37.4. That currently is a gain for the Liberals, but and the PPC possibly stopping the Conservatives from getting that. Yeah, I don't really know what to say, to be honest. At the moment, there's very little going on in terms of changes at the moment. I mean, literally. Oh, now it's +1 to the Conservatives, -1 to the Liberals. But literally for 2 seconds ago, it was 0-0. So I think that really kind of shows where we are at the moment. But what's interesting is places like Salus and Marie, 65 votes different. How important could that be in an election which may, happen somewhat soon? Niagara Centre at the moment, 206 votes difference, with 145 out of 222 polls reported. This could be a very interesting one. The New Democrats are making a kind of three-way battle at the moment. They're in third and 27% compared to 31 and 30. But they are just over 1,000 behind. Interestingly, here the People's Party is on 2,000 votes, which, if that was to go to the Conservatives, would make this a gain for the Conservatives. So, a few instances of the People's Party actually having an impact on the Conservative Party vote and their chances of winning governments. Or ridings, I should say, as such, because they're nowhere near doing that, winning governments. Yeah, at the moment, it's just, I guess, coming in with lots of, in the Ontario area, lots of seats are getting called at the moment. At the moment, it's 100 each in terms of elected seats between the Conservatives and the Liberals, but the Liberals are winning 57 compared to 22. 24 for the Clock Court are elected 5, leading, and the New Democrats are elected in 14 and leading in 14, with the Greens leading in 2. I'll say the vast amount of areas still waiting for in the Toronto, the Quebec and Ontario area are ones that are for the Liberals, and Fredericton is now going to the Liberals, which puts them at +1, and Conservatives still at 0. But Fredericton, which has been going back and forth, it's now a 40 vote advantage. Let's have a look at. So I'm just trying to get up at the moment. I thought I saved it. I didn't. So which is see what's going on in Vancouver at the moment, especially in Vancouver Greenville, which many people saw as a marginal, and at the moment it's got 190 seat difference. It's this was a independent seat, so this would be a gain. And currently it is very close between the NDP and Liberals, 1% in at the moment, and the Conservatives not too far behind themselves, but probably too far away from striking distance. But that was really the main, I guess, area in which the Conservatives would likely have won in that area. I'd say this is probably the most anticlimactic election I've ever bore witness to, ever. It incredibly feels like very little has really taken place there. And I feel sorry for Canadians who had to go through this themselves and actually having to live with the consequences of it. Interesting one in Beauport, Limoilou at the moment, with 62 polls reported. The Conservatives are ahead by 0.1%. Is incredibly close at the moment. This actually is a Bloc Quebec seat at the moment, so this is a current gain for the Conservatives. But a pretty important gain. But at the moment, it's all being even now across the board, it seems. I feel like at the end of this, we're going to see so many gains happen, but they've just all cancelled each other out, which I think is fascinating to see. I feel like this generally could just be a dissatisfaction with the incumbents in many areas, if that's the case. An interesting development that's just happened is that Kenora has just gone into the Conservative column, which has been NDP through the entire night. That's 140 votes lead now. Very small, but an interesting one to note. Niagara Centre still extraordinarily close. Thunder Bay Rainy River has seen a lead pull out of over at 1,100. And so that seems to be slightly more secure for the Liberals at the moment. All right, I'm probably going to go off now. I don't know what's going to happen with the stream, but I'm extremely tired, and everything's cool at the moment. So it's a Liberal minority government, likely to be very little change in terms of seat share. But vote share looks like at the moment it's going to be a Conservative win, which will be interesting going forward. Thank you very much for watching. In case it gets closed off, I've been Aaron Goldsmith. Have a good one.